Good morning. This meeting will come to order of the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission. I've asked Commissioner Ford Little, to lead us in the invocation and the pledge.
As we make decisions that serve our state, with its wisdom, make those decisions that are in the best interest of our great state. This time of year, we recognize that there are men and women serving our country around the world in our armed forces. We ask that you give them strength, we ask that you protect them from harm, give them comfort as they're separated from their families in this time of year. We thank you for this time of year. We thank you for the consideration that people have a little extra at this time. We ask that we continue through the next year, that we each have respect, think a lot of our fellow men. Most importantly, we thank you for your son, we thank you for the ultimate sacrifice that you made for our hope of everlasting life with you in heaven. In his name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you all, everybody, for being here today. We have a full house, it looks like. Welcome to Chattanooga. As I said yesterday, y'all, we're in one of the gems of the state of Tennessee in our country with this fabulous aquarium. And if you get a chance, go take a peek. It's really great. We got a little bit of it behind us, but thank y'all for being here today. And we have a number of guests, so I'm going to go through. If I mispronounce your name, don't hold it against me. We have Leonard Ezell, Sheila Westray, Robert D. McCaleb, Charles Ezel, Jerome Odom, Derek Aker, Tim Yates, Mark Darnell, Clarence and Laura Dyes, B.J. Hillard, Finn Hillard, Amanda Hillard, Fred Walker, Travis King, Fred Moody, Bill Cox, Commissioner Bill Cox, former commissioner, Justin Jones, Nikki Plunkett, Jeff Cawthor, and Scott D'Amaco. And again, don't hold that against me if I mispronounce your name, but thank you all so much for being here. Miss Mary Allen, if you would please call the roll.
I'm going to let Juliana do that today.
Okay.
Monty Ballou. Brad Box.
Here.
Stan Butt.
Yeah.
Greg Davenport. Steve Jones. Ford Little. John McCarty. Rosemary McElhaney. Rhonda Moody. Chip Saltzman. Haynes Torbett. Steve Johnson. Chris Devaney. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Commissioners, you should have been provided with a copy of the minutes from the last meeting. Is there a motion to approve? Do we have a motion to approve? Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, ayes have it. Are there, commissioners, are there any announcements or anything that on your mind today that we'd like to talk about? Having said that, Director Maxedon, do you have a report?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, before we get into the report, I just want to say thank you, Ms. Heather, for graciously hosting all of us at your house last night for Christmas. We had a great time at your house. We're very thankful for that. Thank you again. Well, as we begin today's meeting, I want to take a moment to reflect on where we are and where we're headed today. When I interviewed for this role in 2022, I spoke about the importance of aligning our work with TWA's strategic plan and preparing for the challenges of the future. Looking at today's agenda, it's clear that many of these challenges are now being addressed through your leadership and through the hard work of our staff. We continue to see growing pressures on natural resources, especially in areas like North Cumberland WMA, where OH use is impacting wildlife habitat. There's human-wildlife conflict is increasing, as highlighted in yesterday's black bear management update. Wildlife disease, particularly CWD, remains a serious concern. Earlier this year, legislation allowing hunting over bait was passed despite your and the agency's concerns about its impact on disease transmission. And while our R3 outreach efforts has helped us hold the line, long-term sustainable funding remains a top priority for this agency and for this commission. We also face the ongoing challenge of habitat loss and biodiversity decline. Despite these challenges, there's a lot to be proud of. We've had a strong start to the fall hunting seasons, as you saw through the slide presentations yesterday, especially with our youth and several of our veterans there. Today, we're going to recognize the Fisheries Biologist and Technician of the Year, and this is a reminder of the incredible talent and dedication that we have amongst our staff across this agency that we're very proud of. We're grateful to have partner organizations here today making generous contributions to support conservation and the work of the Wildlife Agency. These donations are going to help us expand access. They help us improve habitat and advance conservation goals, especially in areas where traditional funding falls short. Commissioners, the decisions before you today are not easy, but they're very important decisions. The proposals that you're going to consider are grounded in science, staff expertise, and public input. We appreciate the time and thought that you've put into studying these issues. I know many of you have put hours into it. I've received many phone calls over many days of all the hours that you've put into researching these topics. As you vote today, I encourage you to consider what's best for wildlife conservation and the sportsmen and women of Tennessee, both now and for future generations that last past your term here on the commission. I remain confident in the vision that we've shared together, that by working together, the agency and the commission, we can meet these challenges and continue to make a lasting difference. As we close out 2025, I'm proud of the progress that we've made, both in the field and in this room. From successful hunts and conservation wins to thoughtful policy decisions, this year's been a testament to what we can accomplish together. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the commitment that you put into serving this state. Thank you for your commitment to the mission of the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. I said it yesterday, but I'm going to say again, Merry Christmas to you and your families. Hope you all have a wonderful holiday season, and thank you for your service.
Thank you, Director. We'll now recognize Fisheries Chief Jason Henegar for a special presentation.
See if I can get this right this time. So everybody hear me okay? Thank you, Chairman. In January, it'll be 2 years since I was blessed with the opportunity to lead the Fisheries Division as Chief of Fisheries. And it has truly been a blessing and an honor to lead staff that, like I have, young professionals that really are dedicated and passionate about managing Tennessee's fisheries for the residents and also the visitors of Tennessee. So this time I'll bring Travis Scott, Assistant Chief, up to introduce the Biologist of the Year and Technician of the Year.
Thank you, Jason. I'd like to, every year we nominate and our Fisheries Biologist of the Year and Fisheries Technician of the Year. This year we have two great candidates. They were given their awards at our Fisheries Biologist meeting in September, but I'm excited to celebrate them here today. Our Fisheries Technician of the Year is Aaron Birch. Aaron Birch graduated from Tennessee Tech with a Bachelor of Science in Wildlife and Fisheries in 2001 and began working for TWRA as an intern at Normandy Hatchery and quickly moved into his current role, which is only for a few more weeks. He recently got promoted, congratulations, as the Region 2 Southern Reservoirs Crew Technician. He'll be moving on to a technician at Normandy Hatchery. Apart from performing his regular duties to an exceptionally high standard, Aaron has shined this year when asked to develop solutions to improve productivity. Recently, he developed a fish attractor tree design that could be deployed more efficiently, saving the reservoir crews time and effort. He took lead in onboarding the current krill clerk for Normandy, Woods, and Timms Ford, and he splits time with that krill clerk gathering that data. He also took the initiative to attain a stock of agency materials to provide for anglers during those interviews. Aaron's value to TWRA extends to more than just reservoirs, though. In 2025, he filled an integral role in hatchery operations spawning striped bass and walleye, as well as transporting multiple fish species throughout the season. Aaron assisted the streams crew on several wadable stream surveys because of his reliability in the field and fish identification skills in some of the most biologically diverse fisheries in the nation. He volunteered to represent the agency at many events, including the Tennessee Boat and Fishing Expo, Normandy Hatchery Open House, Free Fishing Day at Bedford Lake, and the Wilson County State Fair. And he also recently obtained his hunter education certification as an instructor. One specific area of accomplishment that Aaron should be commended for is his work with the Tennessee chapter of the American Fisheries Society. When the Tennessee American Fisheries Society recently hosted the AFS Southern Division meeting in Chattanooga, he took on two very crucial roles that greatly contributed to the event being considered extremely successful. He was the primary designer of the 324-page meeting program. He was also responsible for setting up and managing the event app that provided important up-to-date information to meeting participants in a digital form. This required a substantial amount of time and effort both before and during the meeting. He served as the Tennessee AFS Nomination Awards Coordinator in 24 and before becoming the Tennessee AFS Secretary in 25. Ultimately, Aaron's enthusiasm for learning and developing new skills, paired with his strong work ethic and passion for fisheries and wildlife, have developed him into a versatile asset. He has proven through his actions that he is willing to go above and beyond, not only benefiting Fisheries Division, but TWRA overall. Thanks, Aaron. Next is our Fisheries Biologist of the Year. It's Mr. Alex Bible. Over the past year, Alex has demonstrated extraordinary dedication, innovation, and leadership in his role as TWRA Fisheries Manager, making significant contributions to conservation, public engagement, and the advancement of fisheries science in Tennessee. His leadership has been evident within the agency, serving as a member of the Technical Advisory Committee for the State Wildlife Action Plan, acting as a species lead for several species during the review of the state's threatened and endangered list, and helping design projects to evaluate important conservation species. His passion and unique skill set for fish photography, which he'll be glad to inform you about, will quickly elevate TWRA's outreach and educational resources, producing publication quality images for identification, scientific presentations, and public communications. Alex's leadership extends beyond the agency through his coordination of several multi-agency conservation projects, such as representing TWRA in U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service efforts to conserve the federally listed slackwater darter. Alex's work helped secure a $115,000 National Fish Habitat Partnership grant to improve aquatic connectivity for slackwater darters and several other species of greatest conservation need. Alex worked closely with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife to assess the distribution and status of the teardrop darter, filling key data gaps, greatly improving our understanding of this and several other at-risk species. These have already proved key and will continue to inform species listing designations. Alex led a public meeting which brought together anglers, TVA representatives, TWRA law enforcement, and fishery staff, resulting in valuable public input that will guide revisions to the Thames Ford Tailwater Trout Fishery Management Plan. Additionally, he consistently educates the public, school groups, fishing clubs, and NGO conservation organizations with information enhancing TWRA's mission in the public purview. All of this while continuing to conduct sport fish population surveys in both warm water and cold water streams and rivers, conducting creel surveys, assisting state and federal hatcheries with trout stockings, supporting with lake sturgeon conservation, and presenting information at professional conferences. Alex Bible embodies what it means to be a dedicated fisheries biologist and is a true asset to the state of Tennessee and its fisheries. Thanks, Alex. And then last up is kind of a bittersweet award. We are recognizing Daryl Bones Byrne with a Lifetime Achievement Award. He is retiring after 39 years of service to TWRA. It is not an uncommon occurrence for someone to approach agency staff out in the field and say some form of, "Y'all know Bones?" What typically follows is a story of meeting Daryl at a boat ramp, hunter education class, or at some other agency event. However these conversations start, they finish with a similar notion. TWRA is lucky to have had Daryl Byrne as an agency team member for 39 years. Bones started working for TWRA in 1984 as wildlife aide at Bedford Lake. He moved into his current position as Rivers and Streams Technician in 1986, with a detour as a creel clerk on Normandy Woods and Thames Ford from 96 to 2005. He's been the cornerstone of the Region 2 Rivers and Streams program for several decades. He completed thousands of river and stream miles of fish sampling using a variety of methods spanning from seining seeps and cow pastures to jet boating in just about every section of river that is safely navigable. In addition, he conducted aging studies on around a dozen fish species, assisted in stocking millions of fish, and helped build multiple agency facilities, including boat ramps, the Bedford Lake offices, the raceways at Flintville Hatchery twice. Throughout the years, he routinely assisted other agency divisions of personnel with a diverse range of activities, such as working deer stations, dove fields, turkey disease surveillance, and numerous outreach or educational events. He's a certified boating safety instructor and hunter education instructor, boasting a resume of over 800 hunter education classes, certifying over 21,000 people. Daryl's clear passion for conservation, management, protection, and enhancement of the fish and wildlife of Tennessee, along with an eagerness to promote those values both during and outside of work hours, have earned him 2 Wildlife Technician of the Year awards and now the Lifetime Achievement. So we wish Bones a long and relaxing retirement. And he's out stocking fish as we speak. So thanks, Bones.
Thank you, Travis, and thank you, Commission, for your support. And we've had a wonderful 2025 and hope do the same in 26. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and congratulations to all the award winners, and happy retirement. We'll now ask Director Maxidon for another special presentation.
Chairman, this is the kind that I like to do. I'm excited today to highlight one of the most significant conservation efforts that our state has undertaken in recent memory, and that's the Hatchie Bottom acquisition. This remarkable achievement is a result of a powerful partnership between the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, the Nature Conservancy, and the Conservation Fund. These organizations came together with a shared vision, and that was to secure this ecologically vital property. Thanks to their collaboration and with critical support from the Heritage Conservation Trust Fund, the state of Tennessee has now acquired more than 7,400 acres of rich bottom and hardwood forest along the Hatchie River. The Hatchie's in West Tennessee, and it's the last unchannelized river, and it's one of the most biodiverse river systems in our entire state. I know we all hear about the Duck, but the Hatchie is a very diverse river as well. Protecting this landscape is not just a win for conservation, it's a legacy for future generations. One tidbit information, there's 7 different species of catfish in there, or 9. I just thought about that, Josh, as I was saying that. As this project moves forward, we look forward to bringing a proclamation to you at the January meeting to formally establish this new wildlife management area, so you'll be hearing more about that then. This acquisition marks a major milestone in our Tennessee Conservation Legacy Initiative and fulfills a long-standing priority in our state wildlife action plan, basically protecting critical habitat while expanding public access for hunting, fishing, and outdoor recreation. Once finalized, this property will be managed by TWRA as a new wildlife management area. It's going to be adding to more than 30,000 total acres in that area of federal and state lands, which has already been conserved along the Hatchie River corridor. The Hatchie Bottom acquisition, I think, is a shining example of what's possible when strong conservation partners unite around a common goal, protecting Tennessee's natural heritage. So today, we're especially proud to recognize one of those key partners that's here with us. If you guys will roll a few slides as I talk through some of this, this partner is the National Wild Turkey Federation. The Tennessee chapter of the National Wild Turkey Federation has been a steadfast supporter of the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency and wildlife conservation across our state for more than 3 decades. They champion hunting and shooting sports, they honor law enforcement annually, and they contribute generously to habitat work and to research. Since 2008, the Tennessee chapter has donated over $500,000 toward habitat management and critical turkey research, including projects that you all approve, both with the University of Tennessee and Tennessee Tech. And today they're once again stepping up in a very big way. Their generous contribution of $170,000 is going to help cover the closing costs on the landmark project of the Hatchie, ensuring that this extraordinary landscape is protected again for generations to come. So on behalf of the agency and the Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission, I want to extend our sincere appreciation to NWTF for their leadership, their partnership, and their unwavering commitment, not only to this project, but just what you've done for the state. When I was a WMA manager out in West Tennessee, the local NWTF chapter was there for every event we had. They helped with every youth event. They gave away guns. They provided food, and this is happening all across our state with all of those local chapters there. So thank you for this. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Mark Darnell, the state chapter president, and our colleagues from the NWTF chapter to come forward. I think Mark's got some remarks. And Chairman, when he finishes, we'd like you to come forward and accept the check. Let's do this. They're on a little bit of a time crunch. So when they get done, when Mark gets done, let's have all the NWTF members, if they'll come forward. Roger, I'd love for you to come forward with them, and let's get a picture with the chairman as we accept the check. Mr. Mark, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Mark Darnell. As he said, I'm the Tennessee State Chapter President of the National Wild Turkey Federation. For those of us who've been around for a while, I'm going to mention a name that's very highly regarded with the Turkey Federation, and that's Dr. Jack Murray. At the state level, we have a land acquisition fund that we named the Jack Murray Land Acquisition Fund. And in the 30 years I've been on the state board, this Hatchie project is probably the largest single project that we funded to help fund land acquisition. And those of us who were fortunate enough to be around when Dr. Murray was here always remembered him telling us $1 sitting in a bank account isn't doing the wild turkey on the ground any good. So we are happy to perpetuate his memory because we know how valuable he was to us in the Turkey Federation. So we committed to the $250,000 gift. We funded 170 of it this past year. And on behalf of Jeremy Odom, our state chapter vice president, myself, the state chapter board, the roughly 65 chapters all across the state of Tennessee, and the 23,000 plus members here in Tennessee, we hope to finish that $250,000 amount by next year. If not by next year, at least in the next 2 years. And we're happy to do it. So I want to thank you all for allowing us to be here today, and we're happy to help. Thank you.
Chairman, won't y'all get the front? You and Mark get right there. I'm not going to let Jeremy get in front of me. Yeah. Chairman, we got another good announcement. How many of you remember Jeremy Odom? Jeremy retired from us. I was going to say several of you remember him, but Jeremy wants to make a nice announcement that we're very proud of. So Jeremy, I'm going to let you have the podium for a minute.
So I retired a year ago last July from the regional lieutenant out of Region 2. And many of y'all might remember every year in Nashville, we have the national convention. You know, some of y'all come to the dinners, you come to the next exhibit show. I know Bill's always grabbing bags full of stuff. But I took care of getting tickets for y'all and things of that sort. So we was always having to jump through a lot of hoops to get all that. And we approached the state board a couple of years ago, and it kind of fell to the wayside, and we brought it back up this year. But as a commitment to our chapter, state chapter, and to this commission, and to continue working together, we want to make all the members of the commission, while they're actively serving, honorary members in the NWTF. We're going to Jason's staff is going to get y'all's address and everything. We'll make that official. Your membership will get you into the convention. It's also going to get you the magazine to Tennessee, to Wild Turkey Country, to show you the project going across the state, what's happening here in this area and different things, to let you know what other states are doing and other things that we can maybe work together on. But I want to thank y'all again for the opportunities working with y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I'll ask Chief Joe Benedict for another presentation.
Well, good morning, Commissioners. I'm really honored to be here to give this presentation this morning. I just met the Hillards this morning. We're here to recognize the Austin Knight Foundation. I want to start with a little background on Mr. Austin Knight. On February 17th, 2018, Austin Knight was tragically killed in a car accident at the young age of 18. Austin was an avid outdoorsman who loved hunting, fishing, and just being outside. One of his favorite locations to hunt was the Chuck Swan Wildlife Management Area in Union County. His parents, who are here today, Mr. BJ and Miss Amanda Hillard, started the TriStar Hat and Apparel Company to carry on his memory. All profits from that business go to the Austin Knight Foundation and are awarded to various organizations that impacted Austin's life. The Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency was one of those organizations. In 2023, Mr. Hillard approached the National Wild Turkey Federation about making a donation in Austin's memory for work on Chuck Swan Wildlife Management Area, where Austin loved to hunt and fish. The NWTF worked with the agency to have their donation matched by Federal Aid and Wildlife Restoration, or PR funds. In doing this, the initial $10,000 donation became $32,000 for on-the-ground management at Chuck Swan WMA. This is a slide of their apparel company and the Austin Knight Foundation. So again, the total impact was $96,000. They've donated the initial $10,000 and then additional funds. So their total donation has been $30,000 to date. Again, it was matched with federal funds to impact almost $100,000 of habitat and other work at the Chuck Swan Wildlife Management Area. This past summer, we placed a placard, a sign at the Chuck Swan Wildlife Management Area check station to honor Austin's life and also the donations of the foundation. And we want to recognize the family personally as well here today. So if you'd like to come up and share a few words, we'd love to have that.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having us. And again, Joe, can you give you a brief description of what created and where we're at today? And what he didn't mention is for Austin went out to Chuck Swan and he killed his first deer there on a hunt that he got selected to be a part of. And so it goes back for our memory. He was actually out there when he had his accident. He was looking for a place to duck hunt. So he loved to be out there and be a part of duck hunting and any type of outdoor activity. 100% of the profits, you'll see the hats that you have in front. I made them last night for y'all. Hope you enjoy them. But 100% of the profits from that goes all back, and we donate that to the Austin Knight Foundation. The Austin Knight Foundation donates out. We were able to give back $100,000 last year in various programs, $50,000 to the Appalachian where the flooding took place. This year we're not going to be able to hit $100,000 this year, but we're going to be around $50,000 this year. And so we're really proud of what we've been able to do with this. Obviously, turning a sad situation into something for my son and our son in Austin's name. So one thing I want to leave you with is this. From the time that this happened, there was one person that's been there beside me this entire time. And I've never told this guy anything. He calls me all the time. We talk all the time. He stood outside. I officiate football and college football and high school football. And he stood outside our locker room. I had no idea he was out there for 30 minutes waiting on me to get done. He calls me randomly, see how I'm doing. It's Dustin McColeman at Chuck Swan. From the moment this accident happened, he's been beside me. And why I share that with you is because all of you have a big purpose in here, and guys in the back of the room, you have a bigger purpose in what you're doing here. It's not just impacting wildlife. You're impacting people every single day in what you do. And somebody like Dustin really represents your organization and what you're doing out there every single day. So I thank y'all all for that. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add one more thing, I just learned that the Hillards have a booth at the NWTF convention. And so if you want to buy some of their merchandise, and again, the proceeds would go to the Austin Knight Foundation, that's a way to get in touch with them.
Thank you very much, and thank you all, and thank you to all the folks and the partnerships that we have, and we're going to. I promise you that we're going to be good stewards of the resources that you provide the TWRA. So thank you all very much. The Budget Committee met and heard certain Budget Committee requests yesterday, and I will ask Deputy Director Fiss to come forward and give a brief presentation.
Morning, Commissioners. If I can have that slide, Scott, that has there we go. So these are the two projects that we are requesting expansion for FY20, one for FY26 and one for FY27. If there's any more questions about the project, those of you who weren't here, this is we're purchasing body armor for our officers because our existing gear is starting to expire and we need to replace it.
Any questions of the commissioners? Okay, well, I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I think we're going to take a quick 10-minute break because we're about to go into some rulemaking, and we'll take a 10-minute break. And I promise it's not going to be any longer than what y'all make it. So thank you. Come back to order. We're now going to move into the rulemaking hearing section of the agenda today. As I said, I'm Commissioner Chairman Chris Devaney, and I'll serve as the presiding officer for the rulemaking hearing. The Tennessee Fish and Wildlife Commission will be considering amendments to one rule. This rule has been publicly noticed, consistent with applicable law. They have been filed with the Secretary of State's office and have been available on the public notice section of the agency's website. Agency staff have copies of the proposal and red line for anyone that would like a paper copy. The order of the proceeding will be as follows. Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency staff will present information relative to the proposed rule change or new rule. I will recognize the agency staff member accordingly. Commission members will then be permitted to ask questions, provide comment on the proposed rule. Once the commission members have had the opportunity to speak, members of the public will be permitted to provide comment on the rule before the commission. All parties should identify themselves before speaking. As chair, I reserve the right to limit comments and discussion, especially in cases of repetition. Generally, this will not be a question-answer session. Members of the public will have 3 minutes for their comments. After an opportunity for public comment, the commission will vote via a roll call vote. With the order of proceedings established, I will now ask Joe Benedict, Chief of the Wildlife Division, to come forward for the first rule presentation. Chief.
Thank you, Commissioners. Hello again. So as the chairman said, we're here to request a commission action on a rule for the deer baiting privilege license. I'll start with a little background just to remind folks where this came. The director mentioned a little bit about this as well. We'll share the public input we received for about the 1 month period prior to this meeting. And then just a note, there's 2 different rules that you guys will hear this morning. The first one, 1660-0106, is actually the one that would establish the criteria for the baiting license. The second rule is simply a necessary addition of that license into the license rule. So we'll take these rules as separate, and you guys will vote on the first one. If that passes, we'll move to the second one. So we received 149 comments from the public during the open period there. Like I said, it was about a month long. And I just thought I'd read this. This is a computer-generated narrative of the comments. We've used this in the past. It represents well, kind of in a non-biased way, the comments. The public comments reflect a wide range of perspectives on the proposed deer baiting rule in Tennessee. Many commenters expressed strong opposition, citing ethical concerns, wildlife health risks, and enforcement challenges. Others supported the rule, often pointing to alignment with neighboring states, potential revenue generation, or personal convenience. Sorry, it's a little far away for me. Across both supportive and critical responses, there was a consensus desire for clarity, fairness, and science-based decision-making. A number of commenters expressed frustration with the legislative process, perceiving this rule as politically driven rather than grounded in wildlife management expertise. And finally, some also questioned whether public input would be meaningfully influence the outcome. So again, those are the summary of the public comments received. Commissioners, you all received all of these comments. Each individual email was sent to you as well as the summary. So again, just kind of providing a high-level reminder of where what led us to be here today. The General Assembly passed some different bills that created TCA 70-4-113B. That legislation indicated that hunting overbait is legal. This is only for white-tailed deer, also only for private or leased land. It won't be effective until 2026. So again, baiting is not allowed during this current deer hunting season, which we're in right now. The legislation also created the fee. It's an annual license. So if you buy it today, it would be good for 365 days. It's issued to individual hunters, and the fee is $50 for residents, $100 for non-residents. It's also, there's no exemption for this. So everyone hunting over bait would have to buy this license. Again, this is General Assembly regulations here. The legislation also included a statement that the agency may, without refund, suspend the use of a deer baiting privilege to prevent the spread of disease. This is at a county, regional, or statewide basis. So again, you've all seen that. I just want to make sure the members of the public that were watching, that tuned in, had that background. And the final thing in the legislation was that the agency, you folks, the body of the commission, will promulgate rules that would establish what constitutes acceptable bait, the amount of bait that could be used, and then any other conditions of use of the license. And that's what we're here to talk about today with this rule. Also, there's a note I forgot to mention. When hunting over normal agricultural practices or a food plot, you would not need this baiting license privilege. So again, Mr. Chairman, we're going to talk through 1660-0106, rules and regulations governing deer bait privilege license. Again, we're going to establish the quantity of qualifications of the license, the type of bait allowed, and then other conditions. So acceptable bait, corn, wheat, grains, and other food substances, such as apples, kind of those whole food items. The rule before you that the agency recommends is no processed foods unless they're specifically produced for deer. We want to maintain wildlife health. We heard about some of the issues with bears and other items yesterday from Mark's presentation, attracting other species, and then minimizing black bear habituation to humans. So here's some of the commercially available sort of processed foods, but they're made specifically for deer, and they usually say on the package for deer. The amounts of bait, we shared this again at the preview last commission meeting. We're recommending that bait be scattered and not piled. We recommend no open trough-style feeders, 5 gallons or 25 pounds for a 24-hour period. Obviously, if it's a feeder, a spin cast feeder, they can contain more than 5 gallons of bait. And this is what we're trying to avoid. This is an old picture. I think you all chuckled at the preview. It's a picture probably from the 70s, I don't know, that we got offline. And we're just trying to avoid the amount of bait on the ground that wouldn't be eaten in a 24-hour period. This slide, it may be a little difficult to see, but on the right there is corn that has aflatoxins in it. And as Mark mentioned yesterday, it's basically a mold that grows on grains where there's moist environments. And this can be taken up by wildlife. Turkeys are really susceptible to this, and even deer. So again, the idea that there's a certain amount of bait on the ground beyond what sort of the deer would eat in a 24-hour period is a concern to us, and that's why we bring this piece of the recommendation. One feeder, the rule outlines one feeder or bait site on a property less than 5 acres. And then if your property is more than 5 acres, we recommend distance of about 500 yards between feeders. Other conditions in the rule that you guys have before you, it's illegal to hunt turkeys, deer, or bear over bait. And the specific language is that neither the hunter nor the animal can be within 250 yards of the bait. Within the CWD management zone and any additional positive counties, the feeding and the use of bait will continue to be prohibited. So this is in a different rule, 1660-01-34. Mark mentioned yesterday, went through some pretty good detail about the CWD management zone, and that management zone is established in that rule 34 there. So again, no change to that rule. We're just referencing it here. Also, I think Dan and Janelle mentioned there's a feeding ban in Gatlinburg, and that's a proclamation 24-15. Obviously, we would not want folks to be able to bait in that location, Gatlinburg. So a few other considerations. We recommend that hunting over bait is prohibited on a withholding bounded on all sides by a state land or WMA, refuge, or public hunt area property. And this is to avoid overcrowding. We don't want our public land hunters to go on the border of these properties and kind of post up waiting for deer, and also avoid concentrating the deer, pulling the deer off the state land onto that private property. We also wanted to just kind of let folks know when you put bait out, you're going to attract animals, and you're not just going to attract deer. And so we know that there is likely to be some damage to these feeding areas, whether it's a spin cast feeder or something else from could be hogs if you have hogs there, or bears, and we will not be issuing big game depredation permits because your feeder was damaged. We also recommend in the rule that the agency can suspend the baiting privilege if the presence of bait creates a public safety concern. We saw a little video yesterday during the bear presentation where the gentleman had sunflower seeds on his porch and those bears came in, and it's a risk to the neighbors. And so this condition in the rule would allow the agency to consider public safety in a situation like that. So if you put a feeder up and there are bears coming in and the agency looked at it, did some evaluation, we could suspend the use of baiting in a certain location, again, for human safety or public safety. So with that, Mr. Chairman, the agency recommends passage of 1660-0106, rules and regulations governing deer bait privilege license.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any commission members that have any questions
I have a
or
question.
comments? Commissioner Budd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I live in Middle Tennessee, and we've been blessed with an abundance of deer and turkey. And for years in our area, farmers have fought, if you will, to use that term, the damage to their crops when they come up, soybeans or corn. And, you know, we implemented a predation permit system. And I can give you a perfect example. A friend of mine who is a farmer, farms about 3,000 acres in Murray County. And when they plant, particularly soybeans in the spring, in April or whenever they have an opportunity to put them in the ground, then as they sprout to 2, 3, 4 inches, then they lose on many years 30% or more of their crop. I don't think we've done a very good job as far as addressing that issue, as far as helping our farmers, but I've tried to educate them as far as availability of predation permits. And so one year, several years ago, the deer moved out after they had destroyed 30% of the crop, and so they were using bait to entice them to come back so they could continue to predate those deer to keep them from destroying their crops. Well, it cost a farmer $900 in a citation from one of our LEs, which, you know, that's the system. I'm not in favor of that particular segment of not allowing predation permits when there's baiting going on. If our LEs are informed and if our LEs are aware of that situation when it comes to farmers who are losing 30 or 40% to damage from overpopulation of deer. And so that's one of my concerns. The distance could you go back to that slide on the distance between baiting, the 500 yards and the 50 yards difference?
This one?
No, the one before that, I think, or the one after. Yeah, that's it. So if you consider that 500 yards, you're looking at 160 acres in a circumference there. I think that's an issue as well. And we say no more than one bait in 5 acres, but then you got 500 yards between feeders on all these properties larger than 5 acres. And so I don't think the valuation has been done there. So that's a concern. If you limit it to just one bait site for 5 acres, I'd like to see that 500 yard deleted because that takes in a lot of property. If we're going to allow it, then, you know, it's going on anyway. One of the things about the baiting, I was not necessarily for it, but I wasn't for making criminals out of our hunters. And so this allows for both of the possibilities, but those are two of my concerns that I'd like to see addressed.
Thank you, Commissioner. So the depredation permit is a different allowance. It's not hunting. So I guess I'll just leave that there for now. Let me, for damage to a feeder. I don't know, where's the colonel? I don't know if a depredation permit for deer, for farmers, allows you to use bait. And that's really, I think, if I understand correctly, Commissioner Butt, that's the only place that this would come in. I think the point here, at least the agency's point, and maybe there's some clarity needed, would be if you put out a feeder, you're going to draw animals. And if you're putting it out for deer, but a bear destroys that, the recommendation is that the agency isn't liable monetarily for that bear destruction of the feeder. So I guess maybe Colonel Grandstaff, if you could comment on, are feeders allowed during a depredation permit use? I think that's the foundation of the question.
Yeah, I heard your information. I'm not familiar with that citation, or do you know how many years ago that was, or two? Yeah, I'm not familiar with that situation. It would feel like to me that if they got the depredation permit and they were allowed to shoot the deer. They got it after the fact, or? And if it was a hunting season, if the hunting season was in, typically we don't extend those depredation permits into hunting season. And so if it was during the hunting season and they had baited them up to pull them in, I could see where the officer may have gotten a call and went to it and addressed it. But typically we don't allow baiting for the depredation permits. Yeah.
Chairman, may I add a little bit to that? Just kind of for clarity for the commission, the reason that this is up there is if you're putting bait out for deer to hunt over that bait, we didn't want to allow depredation to occur over that because you're obviously trying to draw those animals in, and this would give them the allowance to kill multiple deer. They would be able to shoot 20, 30, 50 deer over that bait. And so that's why that's in there saying we don't, because what they'll do if just say a bear or another animal comes in and destroys a feeder, they're going to say, well, I need a depredation permit to take care of those animals there. And now they would be able to shoot multiple deer there, an unlimited amount, up to 30 on permits typically. But ultimately, if they say it's a depredation issue, which is much different than a crop depredation issue, just kind of trying to help you out why we put that in there to not allow it under depredation.
Before we go any further, Chief, I've asked Council Grimes to clarify something.
Yeah, I think Chief made a mention that we would need 2 votes. We don't. So can you cover that section of 28? Because this is all one rulemaking.
Sure.
Yeah.
Can I address the commissioner's second question first? Okay. So going back to the question about 1 feeder per 5 acres, and I may ask Assistant Chief Mark McBride to help me if I get lost, but this statute here, and we also have the colonel here. So currently, hunters may not take big game animals within 250 yards of bait, right? So if a neighbor has a feeder, currently you can't bait for deer in Tennessee. If my neighbor has a feeder and I want to hunt on my property and I call the colonel, he's going to say that let me let him tell you what he's going to say.
Sort of how that came about in the past. Let's say you were on a lease with several other hunters. One of your lease members baited. Officer caught that person, and of course, that's a baited area. Your other lease members, they would be like, well, can we hunt the property now? What's legal for us to hunt? We didn't violate this rule or this law. Where can we hunt? So as an agency and as a division, we came up with the 250 yards away from that spot that the other hunters on the property could go to. And that's kind of how we came up with it.
So that's the current process of what law enforcement does when there's bait on the ground now. And so we took that. We don't want to change sort of how we've interpreted the law. We don't want to cause confusion for hunters. And so that's what we used for this 250 yards. And so if you go back, the reason for the 500 yards is if you've got 2 bait piles and the zone of influence, if you will, is 250 yards and you have 2 piles and they're together, that's a 500 yard distance.
One more piece about the depredation piece. I thought part of that was we know that's going to attract bears. And if you've got a feeder, a bear is going to come up and rip that thing up and tear it up. We don't feel like we could issue a depredation permit for attracting the bear and tearing up your deer feeder. That's going to be a little bit of a conflict.
Thank you. Commissioner Little, did you have a question?
I did. I guess it's not a surprise that, although I know we have to defer to the legislature, and I respect that I don't like this at all. But my question may be for the Colonel or Chief Benedict. Can you tell us when, just so we're all clear, when someone violates the new regulations, what's the penalty? How does that work?
So it'll be under our rules and regulations. It'll be a Class B misdemeanor.
Can you briefly tell us what the penalties are for a Class B misdemeanor? Sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Minimum 50 on the fine, and there will be a court cost associated with it. And then it depends on what the violation is. And in court, the weapon could be taken, hunting privileges could be taken, and a court cost and fine.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner McCarty.
Joe, can you clarify the difference in the rules versus recommendations that you went? Like which ones were rules and which ones were recommendations?
My apologies for that. So what you have before you is a rule that outlines the agency's recommendations.
Okay.
So we developed this, as you know, we previewed it last month. This is our recommendation to the commission for this rule.
But all of these things are rules, the poundage, the distance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So none of those were recommendations?
Correct. The entire packet of the rule is the agency's recommendation. So every one of these on here, my apologies for how I conveyed that. These are within the draft rule for your consideration. Yes.
I would think it would be beneficial for us to have a recommendation to notify other hunters on the property. Maybe not a rule. I follow what Chip was telling us yesterday about not making this thing too complicated. But if I was hunting on a lease with somebody else baiting, I would like to know, and I think it would be helpful and nice for other people to know that that is a potential issue.
Commissioner Baloo.
Good morning. Hey, first of all, I'd just like to say thank you to NWTF. Congratulations to Bones and what the Knight family did. That's unbelievable. So all three of those that have helped TWRA, thank you. On CWD, I'll be honest with you. I don't think, no matter what we do, I'm not crazy about this bait deal either, but I don't think whatever we do, we're not going to completely stop the spread of CWD. I think our ultimate goal here is to slow the spread. We're not going to steer or completely change the direction of Mother Nature. We're not going to do it no matter what we do. But limiting and prohibiting the baiting areas that we do this will slow the spread of CWD. Will it affect any of us in here? You know, maybe, probably not, but my kids and my grandkids will definitely see the impacts of CWD. I'd like to say thank you to Steve and to Brother Haynes that have done the research. I know a lot of commissioners, I know those two I've talked to a lot over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I know they have dove into it as I have. I was educated on CWD, but I'm nowhere near where I'm at today. It is a threat to our whitetail population, I believe, especially the quality deer management. I would like to see this passed, but I would also like to see some additional things passed. I would like to see a season. Are we going to have a season on it? Are we going to allow baiting from October or scratch that? If we're going to include velvet season, which I don't think we have to include velvet season, but if we do, August to January 1, are you allowed to put bait out? Or are we going to do it all year long? I would prefer a season, to be honest with you. And if we're doing it for biological reasons to slow the spread of CWD, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out a buffer zone, a buffer county, in addition to the counties that we consider CWD positive, would be the proactive way to go. No doubt about it. It's no discussion, no argument. I don't think, Joe, you'll disagree with me. I don't know if you'll agree with me or disagree with me or not, but you have in the past off the record. Not to throw you under the bus, but it will slow the spread of CWD if we do this. Just like Chip said, we don't need to make it complicated. We wouldn't change it midstream of the middle of the season, but any county that's CWD positive is prohibited to bait. Any county that county touches is prohibited to bait as well. It's a one county buffer zone. It would change each year, July 1, or whenever we decided, just as we had a new CWD positive county pop up. We're not going to change that now. It would change next fiscal year as we roll into the next year. I think we have a rule already in place unless we rolled it back. If you have an out-of-state county that you have a CWD positive within 10 miles of a state line, then that county in Tennessee that it touches is high priority CWD. And we passed that a while back. I don't know if we rolled that back in our last adjustments or not. Did we, Joe? Or is that still in effect as a proclamation?
So the rule I mentioned earlier, the 1660-01-34 that's currently on the books, let me ask Mr. Scott Denton, can you unhide those slides for me and pull up the yellow and green map? This is a map, Commissioner Blue, sorry you weren't here yesterday. Some of this Mark went through. So this is the current CWD management zone. And so for those that may be tuning in today, and just a reminder for the commissioners. So the green area is our CWD management zone. Again, this zone, these regulations are not up for discussion today. That is not part of this rule hearing. This rule is already in effect. And so within the green, there's no feeding, with a few exceptions about bird feeders near your house. There's no baiting. Obviously, there's no baiting in Tennessee anywhere now. And then there's these carcass transportation restrictions. This zone will increase automatically if an adjacent county becomes positive. And so the commission, the previous commissioners set this up. Mark also showed yesterday this crazy map with different regulations by county where you could move into some high risk, but you couldn't go into positive, those kind of things. It was very confusing for the public. And so this body in 2023 basically simplified the regulations for feeding, baiting, and carcass transportation to become this map. This is a great foundation for your concern, Commissioner Blue. If a county becomes positive in one of these border counties, automatically all of these things go into effect. No feeding, no baiting in this carcass transportation. So the agency feels, based on the rule that we proposed before you, we did not propose a buffer county. Right. If you guys add a buffer county, it will create some complexity and confusion for hunters.
Now, wait a minute. How's that going to be confusing if we change it every year? If you're an adjoining county to a county that's CWD positive, you're prohibited from baiting.
So they're
and then you put a new map out every year, 12 months.
So the hunters in this zone here they've kind of acclimated to this fact of feeding, baiting, and carcass transportation. What we'd be doing is we'd taking one piece of that regulation and applying it to border counties. And so the folks in, I can't even read the counties here, the adjacent county, they could feed because there's no statewide feeding prohibition, right? But they couldn't bait for deer, but they could move their carcasses anywhere they want to. So again,
so that's where we're getting in the weeds. That's where it gets confusing.
Yes, sir. And I just want to remind the commission, the former commission dealt with this a lot. When we had those regulations of where you could and couldn't move, people were trying to get to their processor. Two counties over, and they had to drive around. And so we're going to just add a layer of complexity.
I will be honest with you, Joe, the average hunter didn't understand. You could give them a 10-question test on the CWD guidelines we passed in 23, and nobody's going to pass it. Nobody ever grasps that. Nobody, that's out the window. I'm with Chip. We need to make it simple. But if we're going to be proactive, we need buffer zones. We need buffer counties. It's as simple as this year, you're in West Tennessee. If you're in any of the green counties, you can't bait. If you're in a county that touches a green county, we would put a map out to show that you have a buffer county. You know, it's as simple as if I have the flu and you and I ride back to West Tennessee together, you're probably going to get the flu. If you're in the car behind me, you're probably not going to get the flu. I'm not a biologist, but that's how it works.
Commissioner Davenport.
Commissioner Baloo and Joe, I think we might need, if we go with the adjacent county, we might need to modify the current CWD management zone to include adjacent counties. So when they look at the map, it's one map. I don't see a benefit to allowing, to prohibiting baiting in a county that you can feed in, because there are no feeding regulations. You could dump a ton of corn out in a pile and feed. And so baiting for deer is really about 250 yards is all that. That's the difference between feeding and baiting is 250 yards. So the question I would have is, Joe, if we go with this adjacent county concept, which I think is science backed, then could we modify the CWD management zone map every year so that it was a simple map that all hunters looked at?
I'm going to look at Commissioner or General Counsel Grimes here, but so today, commissioners, we don't have rules 1660-0134 open. So there's no ability, to my understanding, that we could change this map today. If the commission voted on this, created an amendment, voted on it, we could then open that rule, but it would be a separate process and take 9 months, give or take. I guess a concern that I have from speaking with many hunters over the course of our adaptive harvest management outreach that we did a couple of years ago, talked to hundreds and hundreds of hunters, thousands, in fact. I think the border county hunters who don't have chronic wasting disease that are east of the river would not be pleased with having these restrictions on them, right? I'm not speaking for them. I'm just hypothesizing here, but the agency is, and the prior commission was comfortable with the CWD management zone as it is. Again, we're happy to take action on what the commission wishes here, but we feel like this is a good foundation. Remember, CWD on the adjacent, sort of the outer layers of those counties away from Fayette and Hardeman County, there's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 positives. Most of these counties are very low prevalence. And so, again, the agency recommendation going back years has been to create simple regulations so hunters continue to hunt, continue to harvest deer, especially in those low prevalence areas. That's where the bulk of the work will be done. So, again, we can't change the map today. And I think really if the commission amended the rule before us today and created a buffer county, instead of a 2-color map, you'd have a 3-color map. So the green would stay. We'd have another color. Let's just say it's purple. And in that zone, you could feed year round because, again, there's no statewide feeding ban. You could move your carcasses, but you couldn't hunt over bait. So instead of having 2 areas where hunters would have to learn the regulations, they would have 3 now. So again, maybe I'm over explaining that, but.
Excuse me. I don't think there's any benefit to banning baiting where you can feed all year long. I mean, it's potential you could scientifically make a point, but if I can put corn out all year long and all I can do is not hunt within 250 yards of it and I ban baiting, what have I really done?
One more point, Commissioner. I know some of you have talked to Dr. Christian Schuler. She came and presented to this body, I think in 2019, right when the year after we found chronic wasting disease. She's a research professor at Cornell. There's a program called the SOP for CWD, so the Standard Operating Procedure for CWD, and Tennessee was one of the sort of founding members of that group. That program uses a risk-based model to basically inform us how many samples we should take in each county. So pick a county in the middle of Tennessee. Let's say there's no captive deer herds there. It's not near chronic wasting disease. We have a sample number for that county to detect chronic wasting disease at 1% or less. The closer you get to the CWD management zone, the closer you get to other states with CWD, and the more captive wildlife populations you have, or high fence areas in that county, the higher the sample is. So our sampling in these buffer counties is very high. Again, we expect, based on the modeling from Cornell, that we would detect CWD at 1% or less in those counties. Again, going back to the previous work of the commission and the agency, that's why we made this rule we're not talking about today, the CWD management zone, to automatically add a county, because we will detect that. We fully expect it. to detect that when it's very early. And again, it would simplify it for the hunters. You can't feed, you can't bait, and you can't move your deer around. So the agency feels, again, with the recommendation before you for this baiting rule, that this previous rule takes into account low prevalence and a high probability of early detection in those buffer counties.
Commissioner Dever.
One last question. Am I correct that Decatur just popped hot for the first time?
Yes, sir.
What was the rationale for including Decatur County as a non-positive CWD county in the CWD management zone from the beginning?
There are a couple counties that have not had a detection, but we knew CWD was expanding, and we fully expected those counties to become positive. There was another piece of simplicity here. Yeah, and so in the river is a bit of a barrier. It's not a big barrier, but we wanted folks to be able, there's a lot of folks that have processors in other counties. And so we tried to do the micro management, if you will, of hunter behavior to do disease management. We're managing disease, we're managing wildlife populations, and we're managing hunters, right? And we try to overmanage hunters, I'll just say it that way, and make them go around counties to get to their processors. And it was confusing. It caused the commission a lot of calls. Hunters were like, if I can't figure out where to take my deer, how to get there, I'm not going to go, or I'm just going to violate the regulations. And so the commission, the previous commission and agency said, we'll just make west of the river this management zone. We didn't say they're all positives, just for simplicity. Again, we're trying to maximize the ease of understanding and compliance by hunters. If you make it too complex, they're either going to quit hunting or just not abide by any of the regulations. So that was the thinking behind that back in 2023.
Before we go any further, because there might be an amendment here, I've asked Council Grimes to clarify a few things.
So to Commissioner Ballou, to your point, based on my previous work on this CBD management zone, I really do think that's the appropriate rule to go where you're going. And we can certainly do that. That'd be a separate rulemaking. So we can gear that up if that's something that you're interested in doing. I think Joe's points hit it, is that you expand the CW management zone to include the buffer counties for your purpose. That's really kind of the question you're asking, and the appropriate vehicle for that is the CW management zone rule, which is not open today.
Right.
So,
Tori, let me ask you this. So could we vote today to open that rule, pass the rule that we have in front of us, but also in that have included in it that we will, next meeting, January in Dyer County, we will open the next rule to amend and change where we can include buffer zone counties?
So the public rulemaking takes a minimum of 50, it's a statutory 45 days and a 7 days for the Secretary of State. So we could not get it for January.
Okay. So we're talking a March or April.
It would have to be at least March for us to get the public notice pieces done and provide for enough public notice to get to your concern. And I'll defer to staff.
So,
and then there's several other questions. I also just want to add, I'm trying to take a notes of what I think is a mandatory points, but there's several other folks that have points to make. So we need to probably, as we move toward an amendment, somebody would need to articulate that in an amendment so we can deal with it.
We can, just to clarify this, we can amend this to open up this rule, the other rule. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
That's just an instruction to us, though.
Commissioner Butt, and then I'll go to Commissioner Box after that.
As far as the agency recommendations, what would be involved in amending some of those recommendations before we vote?
You make a motion to amend the specific regulation, and then each amendment would need a vote by the commission.
Okay, so let me have clarification. This is a very complicated issue. The answer to this, to comply with legislative bill, it falls upon us as a commission. Feeding is allowed across the state. I'm in favor, and if I have to make a motion, of saying that baiting can only be done in recommendation of Commissioner Blues, either August through January or a certain period. And I would be in favor of eliminating all the distances, because we allow for food plots, we allow for everything. If we enforce the no piling and you can only spread, from a theoretical standpoint, what's the difference in spreading and having food plots and everything else? So let's simplify this and eliminate all the distances that have been included, and say, hey, you can't pile it, you have to spread it, and you can only spread it during certain periods of time. And the restriction for the CWD area would stand, and that would be much simpler for enforcement, would it not? And, you know, who's going to measure 250 yards or 500 yards? And if you take a point and you do 500 yards around that and you create that radius, then, you know, why are we complicating it to that point? And so if that's what needs to be done, then I'll make that motion. But I'd like to hear some discussion from the commission before that takes place.
Commissioner Box.
A comment. Each of us took an oath to protect, preserve, and promote the resource. And three of us represent the land of chronic wasting. Me, McCarty, and Ballou. 2 years ago, we voted in a very close vote, I think it was one vote, to put the deer season in the land of chronic wasting back with the rest of deer season. It necessarily reduced hunter opportunity. And the numbers have shown that harvest is down because we're not using rifles from the start to the end of January. And we know that one of the ways to combat the disease is to take more deer. And we also know that we want to expand and maximize hunter opportunity. Now we're going to separate out the land of chronic wasting from the rest of the state and not allow baiting, which again puts my group of folks at a significant disadvantage. And that's just inconsistent with what we did 2 years ago. And for that reason, I propose that now or in a later rule, we either treat the whole state the same and decide we're not going to be aggressive about chronic wasting and let everybody bait, or we allow the use of any type of weapon, rifle or whatever, on private lands from the start of deer season until at least mid-January, to go back to the way we were before, when we had more harvest and more harvest early. We talked, and I cross-examined Joe and Mark on the fact that if we let folks use the rifle earlier, they will kill their 1.8 deer earlier. And so those bucks that are harvested with a rifle in October will not be going around spreading the disease because they're already harvested. So I'm not going to support any rule that takes opportunity away or creates a disadvantage for the land of chronic wasting unless we decide we're going to expand the opportunity in every way we can to let hunters, not depredation permits or targeted removal, but hunters remove as many deer as they can possibly be encouraged to remove. That's all.
Are there any other commissioners with comments? Commissioner Johnson.
Yeah, I have a comment. So spent some time on CWD, learned a lot about prions and infectivity rates and prevalency rates and rate of spread and all that. And it's really interesting and very complicated. Talked to several biologists. And, you know, across the board, what's amazing is they'll all tell you that, you know, feeding wildlife is a bad idea. There's just no positive, you know, just point blank ask the question, you know, what's the benefit? There's zero. It affects their patterns, their migrations, it spreads disease. That's fact. That's just a fact. You know, what's really interesting, and one of the biologists I spoke with, I think it was Miss Schuler at Cornell, I asked her point blank, what's the rate of spread? Naturally, what's the rate of spread? She says, well, it's 2 to 3 miles a year. And I live in Bristol, so I'm like, okay, it's going to take about 150 years to get to Bristol. And she said, no, that's not what you have to worry about. You have to worry about that carcass in the back of that pickup truck going 75 miles an hour down the highway. You know? But the overriding issue here is I'm conflicted on this, and I'll just be honest, I'll say it. I just think it's a bad idea for laws that are counter to our mission statement to protect, conserve, and preserve the fish and wildlife of the state of Tennessee to come before us. What's next? Bad business. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else? Commissioner Baloo.
Thank you, Steve. I agree with you on that, Commissioner. But I mean, I think as an agency, this agency personnel, Joe, that you all would support a buffer county. I mean, you all are telling us CWD is bad. CWD is bad, correct, Joe? True?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Or false?
True.
True? Okay. We want to slow the spread of CWD. True or false?
True.
Would a buffer county to each CWD positive county slow the spread of CWD? True or false?
Let me answer it this way.
No, wait a minute. True or false? True or false, Joe?
Feeding of deer across the
That's what you
state.
said the other day. True.
Yeah.
That's what you said. You biologists.
But it's broader than that, I think, in our conversation.
We can figure out a color-coded map, okay? Out of all the rules that we deal with in TWRA, a color-coded map by county is not that complicated. We can figure it out. If I can figure the creel limit out on every lake I go to by reading a metal sign, if I can figure out duck season, we got this. This is not going to be the complicated issue. We just have to figure out what we want to do. If we want to be proactive, if we want our kids and grandkids and our great-grandkids to slow the spread of CWD, to have positive impact on the deer population in the state of Tennessee, so like you said, we can be physically responsible. Deer hunting produces more money for this agency than anything we do. We want to keep a healthy deer herd. These are the things we need to do. So we need to be proactive on it, Joe. I'm with you for once. Let's get on the same sheet of music and let's move forward. Amen. Thank y'all.
I want to recognize Colonel Grindstaff.
Would just like to say to Commissioner Butt's point on the distances and the confusion, if we don't have a distance from that bait site, then the officer has no way to say, you have to have a permit for this, because I could put that bait right there, turn my back to it, and say I'm not hunting the bait. So we have to have some type of a distance to say you're hunting the bait or you're not hunting the bait. Just wanted to clarify on that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, at the request of Commissioner or Council Grimes, I should just go through the last really 2 slides for the second rule so that the commission can have any kind of questions or comments about that. So the second rule for consideration, and again, my apologies for not understanding this process, is 1660-08-28-15, rules and regulations governing license and permit fees. And Commissioner, really all this does is codify in our rules the General Assembly's fee that was set. So we're adding this deer bait privilege license, and it costs $50 for residents and $100 for non-residents. So this information should be considered by the commission now prior to any vote.
And just to clarify, Council Grimes, we're actually just voting on, this is one rule, basically, that we're going to vote on.
Yes, this is all one rule making. What we did was the language you see on the screen there in the license rule, all we did was just put the fees in the rule just so that they're already in statute. That this is literally a copy paste from what the legislation said.
Thank you. Any other commissioners? Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have a method for recording statistics? So for example, we enact this rule like we've been told to do by the legislature. And if we see accelerated spread of CWD in some of these counties or even in buffer counties, is there a way that we could take that information, summarize it, go back to the legislature and say, this was a bad idea?
Commissioner, that's a good question. I don't know that we have any data we could collect that would show a causative action or causative result. I mean, we would have the number of bait privilege licenses purchased. We would know the address where those folks live that purchased the license, but we wouldn't know where they harvested their deer. And I guess we could do that. We could actually, we could cross-reference the locations of harvest of people that have a bait privilege. I don't know that there's any more we could do. I mean, CWD spread is, every state's trying to figure out how it's spread. We're trying to learn. There's research projects all around. There's collared deer. There's all kinds of things, but it's not an even distribution of spread. And so I don't know that we could say this new positive county was because of bait. I don't know that we could do that. Because again, we've had years, at least 2 years, where we had no new positive counties. And then this year, we have one new positive county. It's in the CWD zone, so there's no effect, right, per se. The first couple of years, CWD wasn't moving. We were just finding it because it had been here for some number of years. And so, I don't know, I guess I look at Mark and Dr. Grove. Any additional thoughts on that? How could we track the impact of baiting on CWD expansion? Okay. It's a great thought. I wish we had that ability.
Is there any way that we could add to, so I know that we were doing this predictive modeling research back in 2018, 2019 with Cornell, but give them the data and they would be able to put that into using their algorithms or predictive modeling or whatever to come up with statistics that if we stay, we changed the law, the regulation on this date, and now this statistic has changed. And so in order to, is there anything that we can come up with to show that this is a bad idea 2 or 3 years once we're down?
Commissioner, I think we'll certainly think about that. I don't know that it needs to go in the rule, but I think we'll need some more time to think about it and talk to some folks. We could call Cornell, who runs the modeling for that. I don't know that they have baiting in the model built in there. Again, the stats we would have would be number of permits sold, and we could cross-reference that with deer that were harvested in those border counties or wherever, with if they had or did not have a bait privilege license. So we could there'd be some kind of data to share. Whether it be meaningful or valuable, it's hard to say, but we'll certainly think through that.
Commissioner Saltzman.
Yeah, this is on that. We're one of the last states to bait, right? So do we have any information on CW spread in states that bait?
Yes, sir. Mark showed that yesterday, and I don't think I have those.
Obviously, I was not paying attention.
Oh, no. Mark, correct me, am I wrong? It was harvest that we showed yesterday.
Okay. Well, I think if we can make the correlation of other states that have baited for years have a faster growth of CWD, then that probably gets to Commissioner Jones's point that the states around us that bait have had a quicker growth of CWD than Tennessee, who does not bait. That would make a case.
My apologies for misspeaking there. I think that because CWD spread is unknown mostly, like deer move up and down river corridors, right? So it's likely to spread more there. Like they're going to avoid cities, right? So there's all these different factors of deer behavior, how the disease is going through the system, what the prevalence rate is. I'm not sure. Again, we'll certainly look at this. These are good ideas for us to think through. I don't know that a state that has baiting or doesn't have baiting would have that information. We'll certainly check. Our deer folks meet with other deer folks regularly, and we'll certainly circle back with their disease.
Vice Chair Davenport.
Thank you, Chairman. Monty, I agree with you on the border county, but until we address feeding, it makes no difference if there's no baiting because they're piling it up. It's just the feeding and baiting have to go together, and we have that. We do not have feeding in West Tennessee right now. That's not allowed. So I think if we really want to make a dent in this with more conservative action, we need to go back and amend the CWD zone map at a later date. Instead of, because if you pass a no baiting on the adjacent county and they're still feeding 365, you still got the spread going. So that's my opinion. If I don't vote for an amendment about the adjacent county, I want you to understand why, because I think we got to change the law.
Well, let me ask you this, and I understand that, and this is a Tory question. So on this 0128.15, that's what we've got to pass today, right, Tory? Or
Yes, the rulemaking that you are considering today is actually two rules.
okay,
It is one rule that establishes the bait privilege license, which has all the terms and conditions.
which is that?
And then it's the fee schedule that's more ministerial that's already in statute.
Okay, and then so I'm a little confused. I understand we have to open the rule back up to change it.
Yeah.
So, okay, right now you cannot feed in West Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. And that's driven by the CWD rule,
So,
which is another different.
Commissioner Davenport, all we have to do is open that rule up in March. Do we need to vote on that today to be able to open it up in March? So
No.
what do we have to do to change the rule in that amendment so that it can be changed in March? Today, what have we got to do?
You don't have to do anything else. I think we've taken that under advisement and we're going to take that back and start working on that.
Yeah, I've asked the council to open the rule so we can discuss it in March.
Okay. So when we pass this today, we will allow baiting in every county other than non-CWD counties. This bait privilege will go, when we pass this, we're saying we can allow baiting in all non-CWD counties.
Yes, you will set the terms for the use of bait in all non-CWD counties.
Okay.
Or all counties in the outside of the CW management zone. That's probably their statement.
Right. So to get the buffer zone, which is what I would like to have, or at least have a vote on it, we can't vote on that until March.
No, because those terms and restrictions are wrapped up in that CWD rule. Mhm.
Okay. All right.
And I'll get all that to you just so you can see it in print.
Okay. All right. Hang on just a second. All right.
Can I allow Commissioner McCarty to make a few comments?
Yeah.
So, Tori, if we amended the rule today in front of us to add Monty's buffer counties as a part of the baiting rule, could we do that and then open the other rule back up next year and have the CWD rules match what we've approved, amended today?
So you're saying add a statement to this rule that would be predicated on opening another rule? Well, I hate to do that just simply because of all the process to get a rule approved. Because you remember, you all approve first, then I have to have the Attorney General approve, then we have to go to the Joint Government Operations Committee. And they would be on different timelines. So if if there is a hiccup in one, it can have a ripple effect that's problematic. And that's why we like to have each individual initiative kind of live in its own rule.
Personally, I am in support of what Monty's saying. I think it beats what I spoke about yesterday about us doing everything to help prevent the spread of CWD. And if there's a way for us to approve the baiting rule today to include the banning of baiting in a buffered county, or however we could amend that, I'm in support of that.
I think you've already taken that step. We're going to look at the CWD rule. We're going to include some language and schedule a rulemaking for March. That way you can take it all up in depth in.
Hey, Tori, let me ask you this though. But we could vote today on having a buffer county and pass that today, and then go back in March and then open the rule back up and amend the feeding law there. Could we not? Can we not go ahead and not pass the buffer zone today and then open it back up in March? And then that's when we will amend that on the feeding zone.
As presented, the rule is already subject to all of the restrictions and zones of that CWD management zone rule. So I would rather not add to the complexity. I think it would, because I think the CWD management zone is really kind of where you do that. So if I think you're trying to establish a contingency, that's a little hard to do since this is not a one unified rulemaking. This is literally what's before you is what's before you. And when it bleeds over into another rule, it tends to get things complicated. But, we're going to calendar some language and we'll get that to you so you all can kind of see what we're proposing to try to get to both of your points for the March.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes. One thing, I don't mean to add to the complexity, but like if you really want to, I love this border county idea. And if you want to preserve the integrity of that fully, wouldn't it need to include the entire state of Tennessee? So if we have a CWD positive county in a bordering state, then whichever one it butts up against in Tennessee, that would be a border, right?
I think, Commissioner Johnson, don't we have a rule now that if you're within 10 miles, if you're out of state in Kentucky and you have a positive within 10 miles of the Tennessee's border, then that county in Tennessee goes in high risk. TWRA has already implemented that in 23. Now, I don't know if we rolled it back or we didn't roll it back, but we've had that rule already.
So
that's just like Lauderdale in Alabama. That's the
right.
Yeah. So let me take us back in history here a little bit. So when we first found CWD, it was all new to us. We were looking at our neighbors, our partners, Arkansas. A lot of folks helped us. At that time, many states were using distance when they created their CWD management zones, and they call them different things, right? So we used the distance, and it was a bit of an arbitrary distance, right? We wanted 50 miles or 25, and we had 10. We ended up on 10. And we said if the county is positive, it's positive. If it's within 10 miles of another county, that county is high risk. And so again, I can pull up the map that Mark showed yesterday. It became very confusing for hunters. So I'm in a positive county, but my taxidermist is in a non-positive county, but it's high risk. How can I move my deer, right? And the commission and the agency created that green and yellow map, and we did away with distances. So the agency has no more distances around chronic wasting disease. It's a positive or it's not positive. When we created the CWD management zone, as we talked about a few minutes ago, we just said west of the river, these counties are within the zone. We want to eliminate feeding, baiting, and transportation, limit transportation really within that zone. And again, we have this automatic allowance that if an adjacent county becomes positive, it automatically has those same regulations. So we don't have any distances anymore.
Commissioner Budd, did you have something?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nature provides feeding, especially during the fall. I don't know that we've got distances between white oaks when the white oak acorns start falling and the red oaks when they start falling. And, I really have a problem with that. And I'm going to make a motion that we change the 500-yard restriction eliminate that in plots larger than 5 acres, and we change the 250 yards from urban feeding areas to 150 yards, because that just puts an increased burden on our LEs as well as trying to figure it all out. And then that would still allow for the distances between, there's still purist hunters who are not going to do that. But legislature has passed that law, and so it burdens us with having to make decisions. And so I'd love to get a second on eliminating the 500 yards greater than 5 acres and changing the 250 distance to 150 before we vote.
Commissioner Buck, could you just restate that again, please, before we, and then?
So is that the proper time now to ask for a motion?
We can amend that, right? Yes.
Joe, could you put that section on the screen, please?
This here?
One more back. Okay, that's the 250 yards.
Yeah, there are
restriction.
two places.
So my motion is going to recommend or be made to change that to 150 instead of 250. And to eliminate the 500 yard between feeders on properties larger than 500 acres. If the 250 rule, 150 rule, that limits the distance between feeding. In my opinion, unless I missed the point there. So that's going to be my motion, to eliminate the 500 yards between feeders on properties larger than 5 acres and to change the 250 rule recommendation to 150. That's my motion.
Thank you. Is there a second to Commissioner Butt's motion, amendment? Is there a second? No second.
Well, just one last question. I know the 250 rule, but what was the 500 rule for? Why was that? Between feeders, 500 yards between feeders. Is that right, John? Okay.
So Commissioner Butt has an amendment. Is there a second on Commissioner Butt's amendment? Seeing none, amendment doesn't pass. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Seeing none, I think we're ready to, if everybody's ready, we're going to call the roll. Let's call the roll, please.
Before we vote, I just want to be clear. We're ready to vote on the rule as presented, absent any further amendments by anybody, right?
And it's one package. We're voting on one package.
Yeah, he's got it. It's all one.
If we call the roll, please.
Chairman, one last question.
Okay.
I promise, this last one.
Yes, sir.
For me. We do have a meeting in March, right? Are we meeting in March? Okay, I just, and Tori, we can get this through if we pass this in March. We're not gonna have a federal hiccup or congressional mix-up or something downtown, or I don't know.
It is my intention that we are going to have a meeting in March.
All right, and we can get this done, Tori, right? I'm not gonna.
I will do everything.
I'm not gonna get something thrown at me.
In my power to get this done.
All right.
And I have requested that he open the rule.
All right.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
And it was my bad. Is there any public comment on this rule before we vote? Any public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call for the roll. Roll call.
Monty Baloo.
Aye.
Brad Box.
No.
Stan Butt.
No.
Greg Davenport.
Aye.
Steve Jones.
Aye.
Ford Little. Aye. John McCarty. Rosemary McElhenney. Aye. Rhonda Moody. Aye. Chip Saltzman.
Yes.
Haynes Torbett.
Yes.
Steve Johnson.
Yes.
Chris Devaney.
Aye.
Chairman, that's 11-2. The ayes have it.
Rule passes. Before we go to the next rule change, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Brandon ready? We're going to come back to order, and I'm going to ask Brandon Ware to come forward for a presentation on the next rule.
Let everybody get back in here. And Scott, have y'all got, okay, it's coming up. All right. Okay, commissioners, today we will have before you, and I presented or previewed in October the off-highway vehicle permit rule for you. And at that time, I had kind of brought you up to speed or a quick history lesson of how we got to where we are today. So we had presented in 23 and then presented again in 24. There were some questions at that time. Initially, we had proposed a similar to the private parks at Windrock and Brimstone. We had proposed a per person fee. And at that time, we heard from the OHV community and from Cora and other riders that didn't want that. So we backtracked and said that we'll just charge per vehicle like it is currently. At that time also, the commission didn't think that we had enough information. So we funded a UT survey with Dr. Pudyal at UT to gather more information on the ridership and the use at North Cumberland, how many riders we actually had. So we have gathered all that information, and I reminded you of that. And then also pointed out that the OHV rule, the act that was passed in 2004, at that time, the legislature recognized the increasing use. It authorized us to implement a program, an OHV program, directed us to document the impacts, and authorized us to set the fees, which is what we're talking about today. Also, in that rule, it explicitly states at 79-106 that funds received from the program shall be used exclusively for the OHV program. And actually, the intent is for the program to be self-funded. And any use of additional funds or other funds besides the OHV permit fees, which we're talking about today, would actually be a diversion of funds. So there has been a loophole in our rule to date, and we went back and looked at this, where it was actually a little bit cheaper for people to purchase a hunting fishing license and a WMA permit. And at the time when it was initiated, a lot of the use was for hunting and fishing access on the WMA. The program, the use, the machines have all changed over time and grown over time. We started with about 50 miles of trails at North Cumberland, and now we're over 350 miles of trails and 300 miles of roads. So the program has grown exponentially. The use has increased, and people are still purchasing the hunting and fishing license because it's a cheaper route. As a result of that, we actually don't have an accurate number, and this is what we funded with the UT survey. It's hard for us to track how many users we actually have and how much money that program is actually generating. So what we need to do is create a dedicated OHV permit so that that money is used to fund that program and the maintenance and mitigation that is associated with it. So we went through all that, and there were some questions that came up after the fact from some of the commissioners. What are the other private entities doing? What are the other areas around us doing? How much are they charging? So we went back and zoomed out, looked at a 300-mile radius at the other private and public parks around us. And what we saw, and I can't see this, and I'm sorry for the busyness of the table, but we looked at the other areas, and there is no other area within 300 miles that offers what North Cumberland offers. We're 200,000 acres and over 350 miles of trails. And a lot of people mention Hatfield-McCoy. They advertise or mention that they have over 1,000 miles of trails, but that is 10 riding areas over 14 counties in southeast West Virginia. They're also funded, it's a public-private partnership, and they're funded, they get almost $1 million from the legislature in West Virginia, from the tourism industry and from
the legislature. So that's why their prices are so much cheaper. So whenever you look at, you try to talk about apples to apples and what are the other parks charging, none of them are even close to us in the miles of trails or the number of acres that we provide at North Cumberland. And you can see some of those, and some of them are cheaper, but they might have 100 miles or 20 miles or 40 miles of trails where we're offering 350 miles. And the two that are comparable and advertise that they have similar amounts of trails are Windrock and Brimstone, which are the two that are adjacent to us. But when you look at their prices, they charge per person. And whenever the average party size from the survey is 2 people, and whenever you look at what it would cost for 2 people to ride at Windrock or Brimstone, it approaches that $300 mark that we're proposing in our permit fee. And then whenever you look at, when it approaches 3 or 4 or 5 people in a vehicle, it's well above what we're proposing to charge. So again, the local OHV prices, when you look at, they have a daily, a 3-day, a 7-day, and the annual. Their annual, again, is about $120. We're proposing an annual fee for $150 for residents and an annual fee for $300 for non-residents in this first year. But when you look at 2 riders, which is the average party size, and 2 to 3 to 4, they're still charging per person. When you look at 2 riders, it's approaching that $300 mark. So we're not far off the mark in that, and we're offering 200,000 acres compared to 20 or 70,000 acres at Brimstone and Windrock. Again, I apologize. It's difficult for me to see this, but this just shows our price structure is proposed to be per vehicle. So it would be the same for a resident or for a non-resident, whether you have 1 person or 4 people in the vehicle, as compared to Windrock and Brimstone. And you can see there, whenever you compare 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, it's approaching that $300 to $500 price range that we're proposing. So it's comparable for our permits that we're proposing over the next 3 years. And currently, again, you can also see there that you see at the bottom the 1 year, 2 year, 3 year price ranges, but also the current prices, so that if they are purchasing a high impact conservation permit, which is the preferred alternative for them to ride, it's $230 something. So it's close to that price range anyway. But a lot of folks are choosing to purchase the hunting and fishing license because that's been the allowance. We want to close that loophole. And so whenever you hear about the percentage increase or how much we're going up on the price, they're thinking about the hunting fishing permit and the WMA permit, which is the cheaper route that people are buying to purchase. And 97% of the non-residents who are riding on a hunting and fishing license don't hunt. So they're just doing that to save money through this loophole to ride on North Cumberland. So by doing this, by passing this permit, we're proposing, one, we'll know exactly how many riders we have, because it'll be a permit that they have to purchase for this privilege to ride, this high impact use on our WMAs. And then 2, we'll know exactly how much money they're generating, and we will base our maintenance and mitigation on our trails according to how much money that program generates. So in addition to looking at the surrounding parks, we had looked at the survey to look at the ridership and how many riders that we had, and looked at, we had an estimated cost of over $6 million. If we manage the program, the trail program, optimally, how it should be managed, it's going to be over $6 million a year. So we had that number. We then did the UT survey to get a number of riders, and then used that to derive our price point of how much we would have to charge each rider to approximate that total budget for our program. And we also went back and Amy with our wildlife division modeled different scenarios. From the survey, the majority, 60-some% of people take at least 3 trips per year. On average, they're taking 6 trips, but over 60% of them are taking at least 3. So she modeled a minimum of 3 years and an upper limit of 4 years to look at how much do we think that we'll generate from our proposed permit structures. So In the first year, and again, we're talking about, we agreed, Commissioner Saltzman last year came up with a wonderful idea of a graduated approach to start at a lower rate, to get buy-in, to get compliance with this program, and then gradually approximate what we had proposed in the end for our residents and non-resident fees. So with the baseline, which is 3 trips, and the upper limit, which is 4 trips, in that first year, we approximate that we'll generate about just shy of $5 million to $6 million. The second year, as that price goes up, it's just a little bit over $5 million to $6 million. And then in that third year, you're talking about roughly $5.5 to $6.5 million. Again, to optimally manage the trail system, to maintain the roads and trails at North Cumberland multiple times a year, like they need to be done, you're talking $6.6 million a year or more. So this will allow us to approach that amount of mitigation and maintenance, but we'll still be shy of that amount. And we will dedicate the maintenance and the work and the operations that we do based on the amount of revenue that we can generate from these permits. So that may mean that we can't maintain all the trails in a given year, or that some of, we'll try to address the worst, the most sensitive areas first early on. But we'll do whatever work we can do according to the funding. Now, staff went back and I asked them, the commissioners asked, okay, what can we do with that funding? And they came up with a budget on the first 3 years based on the graduated approach. Again, looking at the number of miles of trails and the number of miles of roads, they estimated an average cost per year and adjusted that for inflation and increased that according to our price increases over the next 3 years. And you can see here what they estimate that they could accomplish in those years. In that, there also is an increase in the manpower and equipment because we have aging bulldozers and we only have limited staff. So optimally, if we could manage this as we would like to, we would add staff and equipment to that according to the funds that we generate. And then also funding for education, for signage and a safety program that we could implement to make sure that the riders know which trails are open, where they can ride, and a safety program to educate people on responsible riding. They also went through and looked at, again, the most sensitive areas, those areas with the highest threatened and endangered species, those areas with the highest use, and identified the first projects that they would implement over the next 3 years. And that's what's identified here. They identified year 1, 2, and 3, whether that's a bridge or a culvert or a bottomless culvert in some of those stream crossings. And this is just an example of what we think we can accomplish. And again, we would, as part of this, and this was mentioned by Cora earlier last year, we propose and are working on a dashboard so that we will have a proposed number of projects for each year, a proposed amount of maintenance and on the trails and the roads, and then follow up with that dashboard on the accomplishments that we get, that we have for that year, which mitigation projects we accomplish, how many bridges, how many culverts, and things like that. So before you now to implement this rule, there are actually two. There is the license rule and the WMA rule that we'll be voting on today to pass. The first one is Chapter 1660-0128. This is the rules governing licenses. And you can see here the fee schedule that we have proposed for the next 3 years for residents and non-residents. That's the pricing point. And then again, this just states that everybody is required, or at least one occupant of each vehicle is required to have a North Cumberland OHV permit to ride at North Cumberland. They will no longer be allowed to purchase a hunting fishing license, and this will allow us to track them and have a dedicated funding source for this specific program. And if someone guides for fee, if they charge to take someone out riding, they have to buy a guide license. So that is the language and the fee structure for the license and permit rule, which is before you for the OHV permit for North Cumberland. And with that, I recommend
Thank you.
the passage of the rules and regulations governing license and permit fees as amended.
Thank you, Deputy Ware. And just to clarify, we're going to vote on one package. This is one package. The two rules are in one package that we will vote on.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. Do commissioners have any comments or questions? Commissioner Saltzman.
Well, I'd like to start off, Brandon, appreciate you and your team's work. I thought this did a lot of work. We asked a lot of questions last time. I think you've answered them in a really good way. I want to start out with, the General Assembly has blessed us with many great projects. Pay increases and Bill Dance Lakes and 350 miles of trails for people to ride on. They had forgotten to put the money to pay for it. And I think we all know that the commission and the staff is in discussions with the governor's office and the leadership and the legislature to try to remedy that. Because one of the things that your presentation briefly mentioned on the pricing is that other states have state money to pay for this, and we do not. And I don't know that again, we don't have a good way to tell how many riders are out there because of the way that's been set up since 2004, which is hunting and fishing license gets you on the trail. So we have no idea how many riders we have. We have no concept how much they're using. What we do know, it's $6 million to fix all the roads. I don't think there's any way we can charge the riders enough to come up with $6 million. I don't think that's a real long-term, because your projections are very static and an inflation base, which is great, but I didn't see anything for what if an ice storm comes through and knocks down a lot of trees. We're on the hook for any emergency management. We're on the hook for any big rains. We're on the hook for all that. And one big rainstorm and ice storm might add $1 million to it. And so what my intent is today is I want the commission to weigh in. I want to hear the public comments. My intent today is to continue the resolution to March after we get a budget outlook from the governor's office and the legislature, so we can come back and look at this, because I would like to include this into our ask for the state of Tennessee, because they told us we've got to manage it, and now I would like to ask them to help us pay for it. That is my intent. And I hope that's the commission's intent. And I look forward to lots of discussion on this. I'm sad that Monty Ballew's on the bench and is not allowed to talk during this time. But from the other 12 commissioners, I look forward to a good conversation about it.
So is this a motion?
Yeah, I would go ahead and make a motion that we continue our
we want to
resolution,
hear
make it
other-
till March.
is
But
there a
I'd love-
second?
I do want to hear from the rest of the commission, and I do want to hear the public comments. We've got people that have traveled a long way and taken off work. I want to hear what they have to say about it.
Is there a second?
Yeah.
Commissioner Butt, second. Okay, so we're going to, we would like to discuss this.
I would
Commissioner
like to
Saltzman.
discuss
Yeah.
it, because this is an important part of what we do, because unless I'm wrong, not everybody on the commission rides on the trails on a regular basis.
But
And-
you
and
do.
I think I'd like to get more input.
Okay, is there any more discussion on this from commissioners? Commissioner Johnson, did you have something?
Yeah, just a comment. Is that appropriate right now? So I spent some time at this WMA, and again, it kind of goes back to our mission statement to protect, conserve, and preserve the fish and wildlife of the state of Tennessee. I don't know why we're talking about ATVs running around. There's nothing to do with fish and wildlife, but I guess we inherited it. Is that what happened? So here we are. Fun times. So in my view, the price is like 6th or 7th on the list. There's so many other things going on there. I mean, the idea that you don't have a dedicated OHV permit and a dedicated hunting license is just simply stupid. I don't understand how that happened, but here we are. So we got to fix that. Secondly is the enforcement there. When you look at 200,000 acres and 250 miles of trails, I mean, we got 2 or 3 enforcement officers. Like, that's a joke. You know, like if there's a trail from Cookeville, Tennessee to Bristol, Tennessee. And like me and my buddy here, like it's our job to enforce that, to make sure everybody on that trail has their license on them. Mathematically impossible, right? And in talking to the enforcement officers, that's the number one ticket written. Like they stop them 50 at a time, literally 50 at a time. And they think that 50% or more of the riders there aren't even buying a permit at all. I think we need more community participation there, the people there that have built their businesses around this WMA. I think that in looking at their marketing materials, they've done a really good job of framing their business as these trails are included. And I think they need to do a better job of making it very clear that that price to stay does not include the trails, that the permit's extra, and they need to help us enforce that, because this is not a threat, but this business as it currently is not sustainable in my opinion. And we all need to work together and help us help you and vice versa. So I think for now, that's about all I have on it. And going back to my original point, if we limit the size of this, limit the miles of this, do a better job of maintaining it, perhaps, we shut down an area for maintenance, keep the other half open, still blow away the competition, get more enforcement officers, make sure everybody buys their permit. We're not talking about a price increase because we got plenty of money. Like this thing can rain money if we just enforce what we currently have at the current price. We're not even talking about an increase. But I think that's all I've got for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else have a comment? Vice Chair Davenport.
Yeah, when I find myself in a potential dispute, I try to identify commonalities. And if we go to the legislature, we will go to the legislature. Let's just say it like it is. And they tell us no, which happens a lot. There's only so much money. And we cannot generate enough revenue to maintain all those trails. I mean, have you thought about how far 350 miles is? I mean, I drive 265 miles to duck hunt. I'd have to drive another 85 miles. And then me and another guy on 2 bulldozers are going to maintain that in 365 days. It's crazy. And if the funding's not there for whatever reason, we will be forced to limit the amount that we maintain. There's just no other way around it. I've run a private business for 30 years. I understand the concept of a P&L and expenses. We're not up here to be anything other than to facilitate and help. But there will be some hard choices.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Torres, did you? No?
I'd like to hear from the public.
So we'll now go to the public. Members of the public, if you would come forward. You have 3 minutes, and if you would just state your name and where you live.
My name is Fred Walker. I live in Maryville, Tennessee, but I have a house in Campbell County in the middle of North Cumberland Wildlife Management Area. I'm also going to start and tell you that I am the last original board of directors of the Campbell County Outdoor Recreation Association, and I was here in the late 80s and the 90s and politic just like this to get the state to buy this property. I can answer your question of why it was funded the way it was funded. If you will let me, you can ask the guys what budget they have now. I don't think even the OHV people have an issue with Corps' recommendation funding. And this is exactly what we want. We want to pay for it. The one thing that I can tell you briefly is what we do not want is there to be just year 1, 2, 3. We would like year 1 and find out how much money you come. And then consider going up if we need to later. We don't need to rush. Here's one time we're asking you to slow down, which is unusual. Go ahead and approve the funding, that Corps' recommendation, my opinion. But don't just increase it year 2 before you ever found out how much money you made. Now, we did hunting permits at the very beginning, knowing that this issue was going to come up in the future. But we did it to get PR money. That's why we funded it through hunting license at the very beginning 30 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Just state your name and where you live, please.
My name is Justin Jones. I live in Campbell County, and I'm the owner of Ride Royal Blue ATV Resort. We're the largest and oldest ATV resort in Campbell County. A lot has transpired for us since last year's proposal. Our business is down this year again for the 3rd year in a row. The first quarter was especially bad, down 40%. Ridership is already down even without price increases. Based on feedback from customers, it was largely due to last year's rate proposal that was published. The non-resident annual being increased from $130 to $300, with year 2 and 3 graduated increases to $400 and $500 caused the most blowback. We've also seen Kentucky and West Virginia get much more aggressive in their marketing, trying to steal ridership from Tennessee. Each of those states offer over 1,000 miles of trails, but like was mentioned, they do receive state subsidy. I'd like to propose a couple of possible solutions to consider. One option would be to leave prices unchanged, but create the new OHV permits so that the program stands on its own, offer the same options that people have now at the same prices. There's just a few options currently offered. This way, existing revenues for the TWRA, local businesses, and state sales tax are not threatened. Then, if needed, seek additional funding through a state subsidy, which I understand has already been mentioned. Another option without state subsidy would be to create new OHV permits so that the program stands on its own with the same options that people have now, and increase prices using a 10-year inflation calculation, since the last price increases were 10 years ago. That would be an increase of around 37% across the board for OHV riders. This would give the TWRA a significant increase, would keep prices tolerable for our customers, and would be easy to explain and justify, and thereby preserve the TWRA's reputation among users. Or at the very least, remove the year 2 and 3 graduated increases for the annual and 7-day proposed permits. Those are deal killers in a lot of our customers' minds. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for all that you do for our wonderful state.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Way down. My name's Sheila Westray. I am Justin's aunt. I started Ride Royal Blue back in 2005. We joined a pilot program with TWRA to get trail access directly to the WMA, first and only business in the state of Tennessee to ever be granted access. I've been here a long time. I've seen the changes, and I know a little bit about maybe what some of you all are not familiar with. But back in 2014, we had high impact permits. They were for local, out-of-staters, and all that. And that money was supposed to go directly back to the trail system. They were a little high, but I received a call from TWRA and asked me not to sell those permits. to sell the hunting and fishing combo because of federal matching money. So this could have all been avoided a long time ago had we went ahead with the high impact rates and that money had gone back into the trail system. We wouldn't be in this situation. I started riding the trails back in the 80s on ATVs because side-by-sides didn't exist at that time. We still had the same issues we have today. We had ruts from erosion and all, and there was many times that I had to walk my ATV up to the top of the crest because couldn't get there. The trails were that bad a shape. So that's an ongoing problem, and we completely agree that we need trail maintenance. But ever since I've been there, 2005 to present, we might get trail maintenance once a year. It's not something that's done on a regular basis. I do agree with somebody who said that this will rain money. They don't realize just exactly how much money that these permits are going to generate, but it will rain money because 95% of those hunting permits sold in Campbell County are OHV and not hunting. So they're going to be a big surprise at the revenue that is generated. And then what's TWRE going to do when Division 4 has all this money parked over here and it's gone from the general fund? One last thing I want to say real fast is that Governor Beshear in Kentucky is aggressively pushing an OHV trail system. It's going to cover 20 counties, 1,000 miles of trails. They estimate that it's going to generate $13.8 billion in tourism. It is state funded. They're using coal strip mining roads plus my gut stop. Plus, private land owners are going to lease land to the state to create this trail system. So we have competition right across our borders that we also have to anticipate besides just this rate increase. But I appreciate everybody giving me a minute. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more comments? Yes, sir.
My name's Scott D'Amico. Me and my wife own DTF Power Sports and DTF Market in Pioneer, Tennessee, which is Campbell County. We've been a resident there for 4 years now, and we have wrapped a lot of time, money, and effort into our business, and it's right across from Ride Royal Blue. And when this trail thing was introduced, the past to raise it so high, we seen the price or the people just not come back. Everybody was going to Kentucky, like the Black Mountains, the Hillbilly Trail System that just opened up, all the other ones. And we just don't want to see it go away. And at this point, I mean, we still do okay, but we have started looking to expand our business to open another DTF Power Sports in Kentucky because they're putting so much money and effort into their trail system over there. And we don't want to leave Tennessee. We'll always have our shop in Tennessee and everything, but it seems like Kentucky's saying, come on over here to us. And I mean, that's just, it's a lot of money that the state, all of Campbell County loses over the tourism, the hotel and motel tax for the tourism. Don't realize how much people come into our town, around there, and they go to Walmart, they go to the local hardware store, they go out and eat, they camp, they need parts. All that money you guys are getting from tax money. The school board, well, the state anyway, the school board, they get a bunch of that money. And if we raise these prices out of control, they're going to go away. I mean, we've seen it. It happened already last time we come for this meeting. We were at the one in Memphis. And as soon as that hit, it was done. I mean, you could see it drop straight off. And then it didn't pass. And then the problem we had was everybody already books their trips in advance. So now none of them was coming because they booked their trips everywhere else. Now then they heard it didn't pass. Now they started coming back a little bit. But now with this coming again, they're going to run away again. So appreciate the time and just hope you guys make the right decisions.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Can I ask you
Commissioner
a
Tobin.
question?
Sure.
So you mentioned that hotel motel tax. I watched the video. I wasn't on the commission then, but I did watch the video of Commissioner Rusty Ork, I think in your county, talk about that. And I believe he quoted $1.8 million coming in from that. Do you guys know how much of, or if any of that goes back to trail maintenance, or if it's an industry, which he mentioned, how much of that tourism money and that tax money goes back to helping keep those trails regulated so that the customers keep coming to you all?
Now that would be a
School. Well, he said it goes to the chamber into the school system. So wouldn't you all agree that maybe if you guys are bringing in all these people and getting taxed, should all the burden be on TWRA, or maybe should some of it be in your county and some of that money going back to helping attract more
absolutely.
customers? So how do we do that?
That would be above my.
Do y'all go to
pay grade.
do y'all go to their commission meetings? And what do they say?
They mostly send it to the schools. Even the chamber doesn't see very much of it.
But it's a tourism. I mean, it brings tourists in. Shouldn't that money go back to the?
I would like to see it come from any source to go back to the trail system.
Yeah.
And then also, is there any program, honestly, that you know of that 100% self-funds itself? That, you guys were talking about 100% self-funding the trails. Do you guys have any programs that 100% that require no money from the state or anything like that? That I don't know of any. I know the hunting license from the deer and hunting license can't 100% sustain themselves. They got to be getting grants from other places. So why do the riding at TWRA, why do they need to be self-funded if none of the other programs are self-funded? We need help too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we need help too. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I would love for that Commissioner Orrick to be here to ask him questions. Why is that not money going back to help also? If you guys are bringing people in to help bring in taxes, you need some of that money back to keep bringing those people in. I think a lot of, not all of it, but some of this burden falls back on the county too.
100% it does. They should, everybody from Campbell County, Scott County, all the officials from Scott County, Campbell County, and Anderson County, they should be sitting here filling these seats, not
agree.
sitting at home.
I agree.
But when you can't get them to come, it's like they want the money, but they don't want to do the work.
Right.
It's like getting a free check every month. So, I mean,
Well, it's going to be supply and demand. I mean, somebody's got to keep up the trails and stuff. It can't all be on us. There's just no way.
100%.
So when they quit coming to your county. That burden shouldn't be on us.
No, it shouldn't. And it shouldn't fall on us. It should fall on all of our shoulders. I mean, it's, and I don't know, other than, sending letters out and asking them to show up. How many of them showed up in Memphis? A couple, maybe? And, it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally on board for the increase, but we need to increase it to where, people are going to come back next year, and then we see how much money we're going to get. And then if we have to raise it, that's acceptable.
Yeah.
But then again, you guys are talking about like the $6 million to maintain trails. We don't want, or I don't want anyway, I can't speak for everybody else. We don't want gravel roads throughout the whole trail system. We would like to maintain. We don't have to maintain the 350 miles of trails. leave some of them alone, maintain the main trails, and let's do some like land management, water runoffs. You know, you go down through there right now and the trail system, they do water breaks. But when you drop a dozer blade and you cut the trail system, but the water breaks up here and the trail's down here, the water can't run off. It runs down the trails and deteriorates the ground. I think there needs to be more of that going out there and stuff like that. I mean, we're totally, if anybody wants advice, you know, we're more than welcome to sit down and give our input since we live there. I mean, 7 days a week, we are open at our store. And, you know, we got the best knowledge of the trail system versus anybody because we're there every single day. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Mike Butler with the Tennessee Wildlife Federation.
Very quickly, Mike Butler, TWF. Mr. Walker, I like Mr. Walker, was there at the beginning of Royal Blue with Judge Asbury and all those folks over there. And they're a good partner to us. And we appreciate the agreement that was negotiated in Memphis last year. And so I think things are heading in the right direction. I just felt compelled to say that our organization is really concerned about the purpose of this giant wildlife management area, which is wildlife. And there are significant impacts to water, and there are significant impacts to critters. When you look at radio locations on the elk up there, they don't go around where people are riding. Now, that's not to say we have any issue with people riding there. That's part of the agreement that started that area. But I agree that you have to get the finances right on it because it is, you can't just not go manage it. It will end up bringing in other environmental concerns that will become much bigger than this discussion. And the last thing I would answer the question that was asked earlier. This entire agency is self-funded. That's part of the issue that we're talking about. And so user pays is what funds everything y'all do. And I know you know that, but I thought it was worth putting on the record that this approach of user pays is not new. It's the basis of this agency since 1949 when it was founded. So I agree we can find other pots of money, but just felt compelled to point out the purposes of this area truly alongside the OHV riding, which just hasn't been talked about a lot because of obvious reasons, is the wildlife and fisheries value that our supporters really value. So just wanted to put that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Walker, if you.
I have some questions maybe to ask what I would like to get you all to understand. Can you tell me what the budget is right now for North Cumberland Wildlife Management Area?
I do not have that in front of me right now.
I think it's 1.2 million.
I think it's less than that, but
probably less than that. We get $400,000 a year from TWRA. Now you're jumping from 400,000 to 4 million. And we're happy with that. We're not fussing about it. We're willing to pay. The problem was all the money went into the general fund and it did not come back to North Cumberland Wildlife Management Area, which you are fixing now. So we're happy with it. But I just want you, I don't know that y'all know all the issues and all the facts that we sit and talk about every month at the Campbell Outdoor Recreation Association. We have that information. I've invited you to come to the meetings. I'll be happy to talk to anybody about it. We just don't want you to go up too much, too fast. That's all we're asking. Campbell County is 50% public land. You know, you're asking Campbell County to fund it, but does TWRA pay some of the taxes to Campbell County? I know at one time, 30 years ago, we personally coughed up money to help TWRA pay the taxes in Campbell County. There's still some questions in my mind that I haven't really got around to this because I'm working on my flintlock. But I'm deeply involved in this. You know, my house is there. we're happy with what you're doing. Just don't do it too big, too fast. That's all we're asking. And get the state to help support too. I'm willing to help politic with that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Davenport has a question.
Tori, is there a way to, I guess, pass CHIP's amendment, but still establish an OHV permit so that if we don't get what we want from the General Assembly, that we at least can start accounting for rider permits? It looks like it's all rolled up together.
I think it is. I mean, there is a very narrow window if we pass something in March to, to see revenue beginning July 1, but the very likelihood it would need to be beginning July 1 of 27 is the timeline.
Yeah, what I meant was, can we pass what we have today? Is there any way to get the permit part separated without a fee increase today and still delay it? I don't think there is.
I don't think so, not the way we currently got the rule structured.
Yeah. So, and we're really delaying it a year probably, but my concern is what's been pointed out today is that if we delay it till March and it doesn't take effect till 2027, that we still don't know who's buying a permit and who's not. Yeah.
Are there any other comments from commissioners?
Yeah, just to be clear, Commissioner
Yes, sir.
Davenport, make sure we're on the same page here. What clearly has to be done is the delineation between OHV and wildlife permits. Like that needs to happen today. So did what I just hear that we frame this in a way where we, at a minimum, we take care of that today and talk about the any potential price increase at a later date?
That was my point.
Perfect. I love it.
If we give us a few minutes and we're going to try to decipher this.
Chairman, may I just make a brief statement?
Yes, sir.
I just want to point out, this is not anti-tourism or anti-small business or anti-local economy. This is about sustainability and conservation, and we're tasked with and charged with conserving and protecting the resources. And this is about providing tracking for this high impact use and a funding mechanism to maintain that. If we don't have a maintained trail system and we have to start closing trails, that's what's going to drive tourism away. Inavailable or a lesser trail system, that's what's going to drive tourism away. We need this dedicated funding so that we can provide for this and manage the resources that we're charged with protecting. Also, just a side note, we had looked at, as part of some of the questions from the commission, they mentioned some of the downturn in their campgrounds and stays. It's the same in Scott, Anderson, Campbell, even Sevier and Cumberland counties. A lot of those tourism counties, they're following the same trends. It's the general economy. It's not the permit fee or the proposal of a permit fee that had driven that, in my opinion. And also the local sales tax was up in Campbell County, but the lodging tax was down. So it looks like people are just not coming and staying as much, but I do not think that those two are correlated or that one is cause and effect of the other. Just wanted to point that out.
Could we put that slide up with the hunting and fishing fees and the OH permit fee? And just maybe explain it again to us.
Okay, so it's difficult for me to see this from this distance, but I believe we have price comparisons at Brimstone and Winrock where they charge per person. So each occupant of the vehicle or OHV has to buy a permit, whether they're an adult or a juvenile. So that increases, if you go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 people. And then below that, we have the current high impact conservation permit price structure, which if you are comparing what they should be purchasing to ride, that's about $230 for an annual permit for a non-resident. It's very close in line with the brimstone and windrock permits per person. Ours is, again, is per vehicle. What the increase that you're looking at, what most people are buying, probably 80% or more, are buying the hunting fishing license and a WMA permit, whether they're a resident or a non-resident. But up to 80% of residents and 97% of non-residents do not hunt or fish on North Cumberland or any other WMA. So they're just doing that because it's a cheaper route. And then below that, you have our proposed price points for years 1, 2, and 3, which would be a per vehicle. And you can see resident and non-resident. That would not increase if they had 4 people. It would just be the same. And whenever you look at the private parks around there, one of the points to make here is that as you increase from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 people, you're in that $300 to $500 price range, which is comparable to what we're proposing. And we provide 200,000 acres at North Cumberland, over 300 miles of trails, over 300 miles of roads that people ride on, compared to 20,000 or 70,000 acres at Brimstone and Windrock.
Brandon, so the first column on the left is the annual fee. Year 1, 150, year 2, 175, year 3, 200, right?
Correct. And I think the one that you're mentioning there is the resident price.
Right. And then non-resident, 300, 400, 500.
Yes.
I had just mentioned when I was up there, possibly, especially on the 2 riders, the 300 and the 400, 500, dropping that $1 just for their customers. I think there's a perception I've always heard in retail, $299 looks way better than $300. $399 looks better than $400.
Great point, and more than willing to accommodate that recommendation.
And then the other one was, what is the name of the permit? Like, what do we?
Currently, it is the, I believe, and I'm not sure if local staff's here, but it would be the North Cumberland Off-Highway Vehicle Permit.
So my suggestion when I was up there, just from a marketing standpoint, because my mind thinks that way, right, Emily? Changing the name of that to exactly what it is and what that money does, so that when somebody buys it, they know what we're using that money for. Trail maintenance, something like that, as opposed to just they're buying a $299 permit. Let's call it exactly what it does for that WMA and for the riders. And I don't know what that is. That's what Emily gets paid for, but changing it to a wording that defines exactly what that $299, $399, $499 would do. And then lastly, and Jason, there may be some problems with this, but I just would love some discussion, is doing a 1 year and then possibly a 2 year, but not the 3 year yet, to Fred's point, to knowing we need to know where we are, and why put a 3rd year in there if we can raise the money we need in the 1st year. I know it takes a while. I think, Jason, you had explained it takes a while. So you couldn't just do 1 year. 2 year would be feasible, but why do the 3 year, the 500 or the 499 if 299 gets us where we need to be?
Commissioner,
again,
yes,
this was.
Can I interrupt this for just a moment?
Yes.
Yeah. So we need to stay on the original motion that Commissioner Saltzman had, and then we can come back to Commissioner Torbett. And I want to respect the discussion and the comments that all the commissioners have, but we do need to stick on that for now. So if there's no more discussion about delaying the order, the rulemaking until March, I think we need to vote on that. Is there any? Yes, sir.
I still don't understand why we can't eliminate the WMA permit. I hear we'll lose revenue. And this is germane to Chip's motion, because I want the accounting settled. So if we delete the TWRA hunt and WMA permit for $53 and make them about a $73 permit, just boil that down to the simple facts of how we lose money.
Currently, actually, what they're purchasing now, where they're being basically steered toward that cheaper route, we would lose revenue in that if they buy a hunting and fishing license, we are getting Pittman-Robertson match money from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, federal aid, to match each license sold. So because the price point of the hunting license and a WMA permit is slightly less than the high impact conservation permit, they're purchasing that, and then we get federal aid match with
What's
that
the
license.
match on $53?
Frank?
We're not going to get the match on the high impact
Yes.
permit. If Miss Sheila's statistics were right and 95% are buying the hunting and fishing license, we would lose that revenue until you all pass that the next year. In
What's the
27.
match on the $53 from Pittman-Robertson?
I can't quote that off the top of my head.
If it's less than $20, then it doesn't make sense to keep it in play because we get $73.
Yeah, you're going to lose the non-resident fees on the hunting and fishing licenses. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm going back, got me off guard here, but I want to say it was around $42 that we got. I was on, okay, it's not close enough. Okay, so we were getting, I think it was last fiscal year, we were getting about $42 for hunting and fishing, which if they were buying a combo license is what we'd have gotten from the Fish and Wildlife Service if we spent the money and got the reimbursement. There's another thing that's in play now is our federal funding is dropping at about $4 million a year. So there may not, just because we sell a license doesn't mean we're going to get more money. From a planning point of view, it's going to be important to get that first accounting of how many people are actually using the area for using the trails on OHV.
So doesn't that support dropping the hunting and fishing license, what you just said?
That's a national trend. Of course, if we sell more in a given year, it improves what our position for that year, for that following grant.
Okay, can we get them to note somehow when they buy a license, whether they're an OHV rider or not? That's what we've got to get through.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
I'm not tracking on that question there. Say that again.
If they buy a TWRA hunt and WMA permit for $53 to get around the $73 permit, can we ask them if if they intend to OHV ride? So that we can mark that revenue or at least keep up with it.
You'd have to differentiate. Where's Susie? You will be able to do it in Brant?
Well, we'd have to ask.
Let's hear from Susie, our.
It'd be like when you do this.
Susie Chris, Chief of the Licensing Division. There is a way when someone buys a WMA permit, we can ask if they are going to hunt or if they're going to be using ATVs or off-highway vehicles.
Can we not use that to somehow develop a matrix of revenue from that permit? That's what I'm really after.
I don't want to answer that, but we would have to ask every person in the state that was buying a hunt and fishing license that question. I think that puts more friction on that process for a very small area of the state, in my opinion. And also it's just voluntary information. I'm buying that license today. Oh yeah, sure, I might do that. We have no idea if they're really going to do that. So I would really, from a bean counting point of view, I would like to sell a specific license or permit.
So I'm going to break the rules here, and now Ms. Sheila has a couple of comments to make.
Out of my skin. Those 4 high impact permits are still out there. If you want to delineate OHV use for 2026, that's the way to do it. Because if you can search on Google far enough, you'll find those 4 high impact rates are still out there. Am I right?
Yes, you are correct, Ms. Sheila. But for them in the budget world, we will lose revenue because we're not selling the hunting and fishing license. And that's why you might say, well, why is that? Because you said earlier that 95% of those folks
That's
are buying
true.
that license. So we're going to lose year over the next year, we're going to lose all that revenue of the sale of the hunting and fishing license, which is higher than the high impact permit, plus the federal match that comes with that hunting and fishing license.
It would just provide information as to how many OHV permits you're selling in 2026.
Counselor,
I just want to add that technically OHV activity, there is OHV activity outside of North Cumberland. That's why we've structured the permit to be specific to North Cumberland, because that was the area of largest OHV use. And I want to make sure I said that correct, Brandon.
That's correct. They are required to purchase high impact conservation permit for bicycles, horseback, hoofed animals, or OHVs on other WMAs, but we do not have the trail system on other WMAs that we have on North Cumberland. Most of those other areas, they're only allowed to ride on an area that's open to vehicle traffic.
So that permit is not going to get the specific data that we're talking about and trying to arrive at.
Because they could purchase it for anywhere. It's not just for North Cumberland.
okay, so we have a motion to delay until March. Is that right, Commissioner? And there's a second. So I think we need to go to a roll call on the amendment. If someone would call the roll.
Monty Blue,
Aye.
Brad Box,
Aye.
Stan Butt. Yes. Greg Davenport. Steve Jones. Ford Little. John McCarty. Rosemary McElhenney. Rhonda Moody. Chip Saltzman. Haynes Torbett. Steve Johnson. Chris Devaney. Chairman, that's all ayes.
And what I would recommend, because these are all very good comments and discussions, and you have do you want to make an amendment to this? I don't know if we should.
I think I'm out of energy.
I would recommend that we continue to seek comment, work with the local community. It's a very important issue. We recognize that. But you have to recognize that we have a lot of unfunded mandates put on us. And to Commissioner Saltzman's point, we have a budget issue. And we're trying to work with the legislature, and a number of them have been very accommodating. And so we're going to continue to do that. But I really appreciate your patience with us and your willingness to work with us. So thank you, Commissioner Saltzman.
And I've already said this, I really appreciate everybody from this community coming down, spending time with us, but I cannot express this enough. Do not just depend on us to fix it, because you will not like it. We'll try to, as I said, most of my negotiations, I try to get both sides to leave a little upset. What I need you to do is make sure you've talked to every member of the legislature, every state senator, every state rep that touches you guys for 50 miles, because what y'all do for tourism in your community is a big deal. That has not transferred to Nashville yet. As we discussed in early meetings, when adventure tourism started in the 90s, in the 80s, they didn't know what it was. And what the local communities have done to you is y'all been more and more successful, because I've talked to the boys at Brimstone. They're now going to just do one festival a year because the local guys are taxing them too much. You need to get engaged, not just with the TWRA. You need to be engaged with every member of your legislature. Sit down with them. Walk them through the money that you provide to the community. Walk them through the resource and how it is funded. Walk them through the unfunded mandate that they passed that they probably are not aware of, and let them know that we want to participate and we want to fund some of this, but we can't do it all. And the state needs to participate in something that is a great tourism tool for, quite frankly, some of the counties that have lost manufacturing and jobs in other places. Y'all have filled that. And if we do this wrong, y'all will lose that too. And then we're back to where we started when we started losing manufacturing. Y'all have got a great story to tell. We can't tell it for you as well as you can. And y'all do a good job here, but take that to the legislature. That is so important. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have one more rule to talk about, and yes, sir. And I'll ask Chief of the Biodiversity Division, Josh Campbell, to come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So today we're presenting proposed changes to Rule 160132, the state threatened and endangered species list. We previewed this in October. There are no changes since October, since we made that preview, as well as we received no public comment during the public comment period. Just to kind of give you an overview, so we're required by law to initiate a review every 2 years of this list. In 25, we initiated this in April. We reviewed all species that were currently on the list to ensure those designations were still merited. Species that were delisted at the federal level, and any other species that we were concerned that may merit listing on this list. So to date, we've scored almost 500 individual species as a part of this process. And one of the big things we changed in 2025 was we adopted standard nomenclature to kind of alleviate some of the concern with some of our biologists. And then we prepared the final documents to support these changes. So overall, we are recommending to elevate one species, the teardrop darter, to endangered. Remove two species, the clinch dace and sequatchie darter, because these are not currently recognized as individual species by the American Fisheries Society, as well as just to mop up some general changes with common and scientific names. And so what it looks like here, so we would add one species to fish and remove the other two species from threatened and need of management. Overall, there would be it would result in 143 species on the list, which is one less than 23 when we last did the review. Just to kind of give you an overview of the teardrop darter and why we are recommending to elevate it to endangered. This is a species that's restricted to the Green and Barren River basins in south central Kentucky and upper middle Tennessee. It's considered moderately common. I'll show you here why that is in a minute, but it's species that prefers shallow rocky pools of small and mid-sized streams. So this is range wide what it looks like. You can see it's relatively common in the Green River Basin compared to the Barren River Basin, which is represented in gray. Our biologist in Region 2 wanted to go back and revisit this. Him and his staff went and visited all the historical sites in Tennessee. This is all the sites below the black line there on the map. And you can see that he did not find any records in the historical sites in Tennessee, and actually only encountered 4 animals 2 miles from one known historical site. So this is a species, at least in the Barren River system, is actually in decline, and why it merits the listing or an elevation to endangered. And these are the changes to common names and scientific names as presented. Very, very minimal. And that is actually all the recommendations we have for this.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Any members of the public? Okay, seeing none, I'll ask for the roll call.
Monty Baloo,
Yes.
Brad Box,
Aye.
Stan Butt, Greg Davenport, Steve Jones, Ford Little, John McCarty, Rosemary McElhenney, Rhonda Moody, Chip Saltzman, Haynes Torbett, Steve Johnson, Chris Devaney.
Yes.
All ayes.
Ayes have it, rule passes.
Thank you.
Well, commissioners, thank you. Commissioners, I think we're nearing the end of this meeting and appreciate everybody's patience. Thank you for this great attendance. We really appreciate you being here. A lot of you drove a long way and spent the night, and just really appreciate your participation. Before we adjourn, I do need to bring up that we have to have a nominating committee for officers. And so I am asking Chip Saltzman to be the chairman, and then Ford Little, Monty Baloo, and Rosemary McElhenney to be part of that committee. So thank you very much. With that, I'll, if any commissioners have any more comments or public comment. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Robert McCaleb. I'm a private landowner in Cleveland, Tennessee, from Cleveland, Tennessee, and I will be brief. First, I'd like to thank each of you for your work, for your time and energy spent on behalf of conservation of our lands for the enjoyment of all Tennesseans. And as we know, we have more Tennesseans every year. Thus, we need the expansion of our public lands, our open spaces, just like any other infrastructure, in my opinion. As a general comment, I'd like to advocate for continued funding for land acquisition, especially in the South Cumberland area. We've talked a lot about the North Cumberland today. Our large tracts in South Cumberlands are disappearing. And as you know, the window for opportunity to acquire those can be very, very narrow time-wise. I'm not sure how or if the commission interacts on land acquisitions or how you do that, but I'd like to advocate for any funding by any mechanisms possible. Since I've been involved in land conservation volunteer work, first of all, I want to say one of my favorite places in Tennessee is Franklin County in the South Cumberlands. I donated a conservation easement on property that I own there near the Bear Hollow Mountain Wildlife Management Area. Since I've been involved in land conservation volunteer work for over 40 years, I have a long list of thoughts and comments, but in the interest of time, I'll close for now, and I hope to interact with you by email. Appreciate your time again, and thanks for your work.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. So with that, any other comments? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm going to ask for one exemption there, Chip. I'd just like to introduce the two youngest sportsmen in the room, Walker and Woods, and make a note, Woods is tagged out on bucks this year. So.
Congratulations. All right, I'm going to entertain a motion that we adjourn. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Ayes have it. Motion, thing adjourned.